You have your tablet?
Yeah.
We can fix. Go for it.
Five.
6 o'clock? Ned's already on.
She'll just push me down this. Budget.
Right here, right?
Yep, yep.
Good afternoon. I apologize for being tardy. Traffic was unrelenting today, so I thought I gave myself enough time, but apparently I did not. Without further ado, good afternoon. Welcome to our fiscal year 2024 City Council Subcommittee on the budget. As we have done in the past, we have received the budget. The councilors are well aware of the budget. We have the document before us. We like to get input from each department, each respective department head that the budget affects, and we'll just go in order. This is, you know, a good opportunity for councilors to ask clarifying questions of the budget, and you'll have an opportunity to come up and present and talk to us about your particular budget, and councils will have an opportunity to ask questions. But without further ado, can we have Clerk Rowe call the roll call?
Counsel LaPierre?
Present.
Present. Counsel Lozey? Absent. Counsel Staubach?
Present.
Present. Counsel Field?
Present.
Present. Counsel Hogan?
Present.
Present.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we're going to begin with Chief Financial Officer Michael Bertino. He can give us a little overview of the budget itself, and we appreciate you coming in, Mike.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the 2024 budget. A quick overview, something that we've done the past 4 years that I've been here. We started the budget process in January. We sent out instructions to all the department heads. Because we knew the situation was a little bit tighter this year than unlike the previous years, we asked everybody to level fund with the exception of contractual increases that were going up. So that's what we did. We also, for the first time, did a little presentation at one of the department head meetings where we showed all the new money we were getting this year from the state, from local receipts, and from taxation. And we also showed everybody where a lot of that money was going. It was going to pay for our health care, for our pensions, and for our net school spending. So we displayed that to department heads probably about 45 days ago. So they knew that by the city asking everybody to level fund their budget without additional increases unless they were contractual was really the tone of the budget process. So with that being said, my budget is unchanged from last year to this year, although I want to point out the fact that we had a retirement in the comptroller's office last year, and instead of hiring a new full-time position, we consolidated it with the position in my office. So essentially, I created a part-time to a full-time position in my office, and the comptroller's is down one full-time equivalent. So overall, between our two departments, we saved, a half a full-time equivalent position, and we still are getting the work done, and we divided up the duties so that the new person would be able to take on those additional duties from the retirement person. Otherwise, our budget is pretty straightforward.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from my colleagues? For Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, just clarification.
Councilor Allenson.
Mike, thank you. In this report, you mentioned about hiring a grants manager position within department. Can you answer stuff about this? Are we creating new positions, or we are looking for grants manager within the department?
The grants manager position in my department was a change from the opera compliance officer. We changed the responsibilities in the duties of that position. Instead of calling it the opera compliance officer, we called it.
But can you answer about all the other departments? Because it clearly says here, the goal is to hire grant managers position within departments.
Okay, under which section are you looking at?
So I'm looking at, under the current highlights of the goals and future highlights of the financial department.
Excuse me?
The goals and highlights,
Okay.
future highlights.
Let the record reflect, too, that we've asked for page numbers on this document in the past. We're working toward that, but it hasn't happened yet, so that could be a note to, in the
Got it.
much easier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was just hoping you can answer for all, because this clearly is a report under the treasurer collector's goals and future highlights, which has no page in my book.
It's well, I see it under city clerk and election office. Is that where you're looking?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's under financial department.
Okay.
Under financial department, there's the goals and future highlights.
Okay.
Is it in the summary?
And then in the summary, yeah, thank you, Councilor Field, it says here, the goal is to hire grant managers positions within department,
Under the treasurer collectors?
under the treasurer collectors. So my question is, are we hiring a new position, or this is just going to be created within the department?
Hang on one second.
It's under the goals and future highlights. On the 1, 2, 3, 4, page 5 of financials.
Yes.
Page 5 of financials.
Oh, that's in the comptroller's office.
That's
That
what
would
I'm
be for-
saying, yeah.
Yeah, that would be for all departments. I thought you were saying.
Right.
I thought you were saying it was in the.
CFO
Treasurer
department,
budget.
that's why
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
saying, maybe you can answer
Yes, we
this
would,
one.
I mean, we're always looking for that. I mean, all departments ask.
Right.
For grants help, especially gateway communities like ourselves. They help us test new waters, apply for funding. So it's pretty common. I know the police department is looking as well. We're always looking for grant writers to help support our operations through available grant funds out there.
Yeah, I just would like to say, as a grant writer myself, this is the thing to go. We need to hire as many grant writers as possible in order for our city to really acquire a lot of those.
I agree. It's the budget was a little bit tighter this year.
Yeah.
Inflation's hitting everybody. We cut about 1.2 million out of the requested budget, although most of them won't have an effect on departments, but we did eliminate, a couple of funded positions that were vacant. But we're always looking for grant-funded positions.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other further questions for Mike? Councilor Staubach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, in the same area of future goals, it says disputing 110,000 in 2020 ACA noncompliance penalties. What is that?
So if you recall, ACA compliance has been going on now for about 6 or 7 years, and this will be covered in more detail in the Treasurer's office. But if you remember back about 8 or 9 months ago, we hired somebody to handle the benefits under the school department, because one of the biggest things we were getting every year was huge fines from the IRS, $6 and $7 million. And our treasurer has been very diligent going back and forth for 2 and 3 years, cleaning up this data and putting procedures in place. So that's what we've been doing.
Related?
It's all payroll related through the affordable health care. It's all related to, not to take some of the treasurer's good work away, but it's also related to the implementation of the benefits as well. So now we have a system in play. We just did a dependent audit, but we've had huge fines that our treasurer collector has, mitigated to next to nothing through her hard work with the IRS. It's 4, 5, 6, 7 hours on the phone on hold because they send us a notice saying that we owe them 6 or 7 million. So she has been able to get those penalties reduced to basically nothing through her efforts to improve the process year in and year out. And a lot of these processes start 3 and 4 years back. So they started before any of us were even here. So I think the first penalty that we got in 2017 or 18 didn't get here until 2019, and that original one was $7 million. So now we have consolidated one person doing the city side health benefits and one person doing the school side health benefits. That's enabled us to narrow down where the problems are, and we've been doing everything we can to correct those problems.
So
But it's all...
small businesses that they harass them.
They harass us, right. But as you know, it takes a couple of years, and a lot of it's data input, and I'm sure the treasurer will have a much better explanation, but I know she's worked extremely hard, and for years, going back and forth with the IRS. And what the IRS has done now is said, okay, everybody's had 6 or 7 years of a break-in period. Now there's no more waiving of penalties and fees. Luckily, we're at a point where people are actually coming from other cities and states asking her how she did it. So I'm sure she'll elaborate on it, but it's been a lot of work, and people really didn't understand it when it first came about, and it's kind of evolved over the last 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other further comments or questions for Mike? Seeing none. Thank you, Mike. Next up is our Comptroller, Steve Spencer. Steve, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. So, as you see the budget before you for the City Comptroller's Office, where, as Mike was explaining earlier, we are a department of 4, myself, Michelle Zayak, Assistant Comptroller, Killian Sear, Coco, this might help you. He was hired as a grants specialist as opposed to a grants manager. And then we have Kim Elwell, who's a systems accountant. So that's our staff. Our salaries are 75% of our budget. Also on the expense side, what we have is our audit costs before you. A city of our size, we are mandated to have a single audit due to the size of our community. And basically that makes up about $110,000 of our expenses. And we also have a fixed asset software that we have to, that is part of our financials package in our audit statements as well. And the budget that you see for the comptrollers, this is substantial. This is fine for us to live within our means.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council? We're also joined by Councilor at Large Nicole McLean. Thank you for joining us, Councilor. Councilor Staubach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve, are you losing a position or a half a position where I see it go from 560 down to 496?
So as Mike was explaining, we had a munis liaison who was in my office full-time. And what we did was, that person now works under Michael. So we kind of lost an employee. But we changed duties accordingly. So our staffs are now, fully complementable. So basically, we have within our movement in our offices, with the hiring of Killian, the retirement of Mary, it kind of worked out.
Okay, so your loss got absorbed into the salary that they had previously had before?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? Council Field.
Thank you. Chair, Steve, I'm looking at the final for 2023, submitted for 2024, and the final for 2024. Under comptroller, it shows the deduction from 560,168 to 496,908. So it shows that decrease of that position. But in the CFO's budget, it's 409,647. It actually is decreased with fiscal 2024 to 405,752. So it's about a $4,000 difference less. So where is that position being funded? Where is it showing that in the item line?
It's in Michael's line. It's in Michael's line.
So it's basically what I just asked,
Yeah.
Okay.
where they lost the position, they lost a position.
Okay,
But
so it's
the
level, okay.
position they lost.
That makes sense.
Ended up going over to the CFO's office.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Thanks for clarifying. Any other questions? Seeing none? Steve, thank you.
Anytime.
Okay, moving right along, we're going to go to Elise Fannin, our treasurer, collector, her department. Welcome, Elise.
Thank you. I just want to do some department highlights, and I'll touch on the ACA fines. Our department doesn't do a lot of spending. We focus more on revenue. So we just completed our dependent eligibility audit for our health insurance, which was ultimately to ensure the integrity of the city's health trust fund. So this dependent eligibility audit was to ensure everyone on our health care plan is eligible to be on it according to our plan document. If they found anyone who wasn't, and they were potentially to get sick or injured and reach a level of claims that would hit stop-loss insurance, which is typically over $200,000, stop-loss will not pay the claims if they were ineligible on our plan. And so that would be a risk of putting a liability on our health trust fund. So we've gone through this audit. We have over 99% response rate. It went really well. We're wrapping up things now. And as a result, we've put in tighter controls when enrolling new dependents on our plan to make sure they're providing documents that prove their relationship to the subscriber, which is the employee of the city. So going forward, we have confidence that our health trust fund is more protected than it has been in the past. Also related to health insurance, as the CFO has spoken about before, we've been working on reducing the Affordable Care Act fines. So in 2017, the original fine was close to $7 million, and we worked that down by going employee by employee who was discovered. The IRS believed we did not offer them health insurance, so we had to go employee by employee, calculate their W-2 wages, and make sure our health insurance was not costing them more than 9.5% of their gross income. So we had to prove all of that to the IRS, and that was a long list of employees. In 2018, that fine was reduced to $160,000 for that year, so you can see we improved our data collection in that year. I fought that down to zero. 2019 was $131,000. That got fought down to zero. 2020 was $110,000. That's zero. 2021, I have not heard their response yet, but we'll get that down to zero. And then in 2022, as a result of limiting the data entry to 2 clerks for the schools in the city, we were able to submit our 1095Cs early, like a month before the due date, and the file was accepted on the first try. So we have consistently improved this process and the controls going forward that we expect to see 0 fines in the future.
But it's labor intensive.
It's what?
It's labor intensive.
It's labor intensive, but going forward, the Nancy DeJoy and Carrie Hodgson, with the help of Don Quietek, are inputting the correct information. It's all dates. We have to offer you insurance within 30 days of your hire date, and we have to term you within so many days of your resignation date. So our data in our Munis software is accurate now, so the reporting is much simpler and straightforward. In addition, we focus on interest income, which is volatile in the different markets, and over the past 5 years, we've seen a roller coaster ride. COVID took a big hit on interest rates at banks, so a lot of banks were paying out less than 1%. For an example, in 2020, we moved a lot of funds out of Eastern Bank, which went public and was not offering huge interest rates to customers. So we diversified our banking and put funds in different banks such as Harbor One, Salem 5, Cambridge Savings, Leader Bank. So in 2020, we made almost $1 million in interest income versus $100,000 in the years past. COVID hit, we were back down to that $100,000, $200,000 a year, and I'm happy to say in FY23, we're up over $3 million in interest income by just building relationships with the different banks, watching the market, and seeing who's got the best rates, without jumping too much, because you want to maintain those relationships. Upcoming for FY24, we have negotiated with Leader Bank and Lighthouse. They're going to provide lockbox services for us for tax payments. So I'm sure you get many calls from constituents between February and maybe May that we're slow to process their checks, or the mail isn't happening fast enough for them. So that's because real estate, the first commitment of excise taxes, personal property, and the trash bill all become due at the same time. So all of that bulk mail is coming into our office, and so are the phone calls and emails and questions about those bills. So this agreement with Leader Bank and their Lighthouse processor will help us process some of those bills, and we'll have more time to answer taxpayer questions on the phone and have face-to-face interactions with them and deposit their checks much faster so they don't have to worry about reconciling their bank statements.
Councillor Field.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At least just to touch on what you just said, I know I experienced myself, and then I get a lot of complaints about receiving second notices when the first notice doesn't seem to get there. And you mentioned that there's an email or a part of a process where you can sign up via email and receive email notifications that when a bill is sent from the treasurer collector's office, that you should have received it so people are notified. Could you just give a shameless plug as
Sure.
to what people can do to sign up for that notification?
Yep, I'm happy to. So we use City Hall Systems as our third-party vendor for collections of online payments. They offer a service where if you go on their website and register, you can sign up for emailed bills, you can sign up for notices, you can still get your paper bill mailed to you in addition to the email. You can also sign up for automatic payments. So for instance, my license plate, I have registered there, so when the tax bill, the excise bill comes out, it automatically takes the payment from my bank account. They charge 2.95% if you pay by credit card, which can be hefty if you bought a brand-new vehicle in the first year of excise tax. But if you pay with an e-check, it's only 50 cents, which is less than the cost of a stamp.
Excellent. Good PSA there. Another follow-up?
Yeah, and can you explain why the fees cannot be waived?
Yes, so Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 3 or 15, I forget which one it is.
We won't hold you to that.
Thank you. So the state of Massachusetts is unforgiving. So they say the fact that you did not receive your bill is not a reason for not paying it. It actually is the taxpayer's responsibility to seek out the bill. And on that note, no one likes hearing that. So I do want to give a little credit to the staff in my office that take the heat on that on a daily basis. There's nothing we can do legally. It's very unfortunate, and we hear horror stories, people in hospitals and bereavements, and we can't waive that.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, are there any other questions from councilors regarding Elisa's department, treasurer, and collectors? I just want to plug as well, we've had a lot of calls from constituents about late payments and in the mail getting lost and so on, but your staff has been really wonderful about working with folks and working things out, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chrissy in particular. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Moving right along to the assessor's office. Mr. Gator, Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The assessing department is responsible for assessing all real and personal property at fair market value. Last year, with the support of the council, we were able to get all of our values certified by the Department of Revenue. That's why you will notice a pretty significant decrease in our expenses this year. We were funded additional money last year for consultants for some of our reporting. Over the past few years, we've made a big push to increase efficiencies through the use of technology in our office, both for staff and for the taxpayers. We have moved to aerial photography, some artificial intelligence for deed recording, and also other computer software that helps us capture some new growth. So those are all included in our budget this year. Since we've gone to it over the last couple of years, we don't really see how we operated without some of this technology before. And on the taxpayer side, the seniors and veterans are able to fill out their applications online. Businesses are able to report their income expenses online. So we've really made a push towards bringing everything up to date. And you know, this budget before you allows us to continue that work.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments for Chris, the assessors department? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll move right along to Tim in the purchasing department. Mr. Leonard, welcome. Good afternoon.
Hello. With the purchasing budget, I'm sure everybody assumes that we do all the buying for the city. That is not true. We oversee everybody's buying for compliance within the laws of Massachusetts and basically keep the city out of trouble. The only big expense in my budget is we maintain the copier lease for 12 copiers in this building and one at the DPW. With my funding and current staff levels, I see no issues with my budget. This includes with the addition of the opera funds, which will be very challenging. The money's starting to hit the streets. People are starting to call me the subrecipients. And, you know, with our internal projects, you know, we're in a good position, especially internally. I think we're on a good pace to obligate and spend right on schedule. And with the subrecipients, I've already shown a bunch of them that my door is open. Come see me anytime. I'd rather have them see me now than come later and ask for forgiveness. So that's been going okay. I have gotten more and more emails as the weeks have gone on, and just going to get that money spent. So with the current levels, we should be able to continue to do that.
Great, thank you, Tim. Any questions, comments for Tim, purchasing department? Councilors? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
The next one is IT and informational technology. Mike, would you mind saying a few words about this department? Peter is not able to be here at this time. I know it does fall under your jurisdiction, so our IT department. Thank you.
Again, Mike Bertino, City CFO. Absolutely. Peter had a prior arrangement today, so he couldn't make it. His budget is fine. His budget got some additional funds for postage. Postage has increased, and the number of mailings that we're doing for voting and other types of projects that the city is doing has increased dramatically. So that's the only area that he has received additional funding. We did have a vacant position in his department that we needed to not fund. There was nobody in there, and right now we're going through an assessment, a cyber assessment from the money the council granted us about 4 months ago. So they're going to test our awareness and our safeguards for cyber, and we will report back once that assessment has been completed. But otherwise, Pete is very comfortable with his budget.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments for Mike about the IT budget? Seeing none, thank you. Council Staben.
Just real quick, if there's one position going unfilled, I only see a difference of a negative $1,000 from this past year versus next year.
Right, because he has all of the standard contracts in his position, and believe it or not, the position has been vacant for a year. So we just opted not to fill it. Most of the contracts that Peter pays in his budget are paid on behalf of other departments, like he covers our financial software package. So he sees some increases, but those increases got absorbed by the decrease in the personnel.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from councilors? Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Moving right along to Attorney Markopoulos in the Law Department. George, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council. The mission of the Law Department has been, and continues to be to provide excellent legal services, advice, representation to the mayor, the city council, boards, commissions, and all city departments. We're in good shape in terms of our budget. We are level funded. Most recently, we've been working on some very exciting things: the ARPA grants, the Affordable Housing Trust, the Northern Strand Extension Bike Path, the Broadway roadway improvements, the acquisition of the GE Field, the new Pickering Junior High School, the Harbor Park, and major Linway developments. Again, I'd like to thank the council, the mayor, Michael Bertino, and the skilled, experienced, and dedicated people that make up the Law Department: Kathleen Bellevue, James Wellock, Jim Lamanna, and Rick Vitale. Any questions?
Any questions, councilors? I can attest you have a wonderful staff as well, so we're grateful to all of them. Seeing none? Okay, thank you, George.
Thank you.
Drew Russo, Personnel Director for the Personnel Department. Good afternoon, Drew.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, councilors. Drew Russo, Personnel Director. On behalf of our department, I present a mostly level funded budget for FY24. Thanks to the support of Mayor Nicholson and the council, we've been able to make strides in building a more representative workforce, increasing the number of applications received for city positions, enhancing policies and processes in collaboration with our colleagues in the law department, offering professional development opportunities for employees, such as our popular conversational Spanish initiative made possible through a partnership with North Shore Community College, collaborating with our DEI officer on promoting employee resource groups, making significant progress in the digitization of employee records. Councilor LaPierre, if you remember, we talked about that a lot 4 years ago when I first came on board, and our active employee files have been digitized, and developing a more comprehensive employee onboarding process. On that last point, I do want to address what appears to be a substantial increase in our payroll line. As Elise talked about a few minutes ago, traditionally, health insurance benefits have been administered through the Treasurer Collector's Office. And I want to give kudos. You know, we work very, very closely with some outstanding colleagues, including Elise and Nancy DeJoy, Internal Auditor Don Quietek, and more recently, our School Benefits Administration lead, Kerry Hodgden. And in working together, we really came to the determination that it was time to migrate Health Benefits Administration under the auspices of the Personnel Department. This is consistent with recommendations that the Collins Center at UMass Boston made prior to my coming on board as Personnel Director 4 years ago. And should this budget be adopted, the Benefits Coordinator position will transfer to the Personnel Department for FY24. So you'll see that the salary line in the Treasurer Collector's Office is less, and that results in the increase in this department. In terms of future goals, we look to work with the mayor's office on improving data analytics related to recruitment and retention, expanding our digitization efforts, including a fully integrated online application and candidate tracking process. And in the nearer term, we need to hire a new human resources associate that will support our office's language access efforts. Finally, I want to give some real props to our team, Administrative Assistant Maria Bray and Senior HR Generalist Allison Hart. They don't just keep our office running smoothly, but they treat every single person that walks through our doors or makes a phone call or sends an email with warmth and dignity and respect. They're two great colleagues that I have such a pleasure to work with every day. And we're also grateful to the Department of Public Health for allowing Iris Martinez to pinch hit for us for the next several weeks as we fill that vacant HR associate position that we talked about. So again, I thank all of you on the council, the mayor, my colleagues that are here tonight for their support of our department, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for personnel? Yes, Councilor Field.
I think, Drew, I didn't want to stop you when you were going through all that. You did touch on the part with the Treasurer Collector's Office, that collaboration there. You mentioned that was a recommendation from UMass Boston, correct?
Yes.
Is that also a recommendation from the state? And I don't know if this is a question for you or for Elise. Was that a recommendation for the state also to kind of?
I'm not, maybe the CFO can speak. Do you mean in terms of the Fiscal Stability Office, or is that one of the recommendations that the Commonwealth made, or?
I mean, I'm sorry, with the health insurance stuff that she's been on the phone for many, many hours, is that something that they advise to say, you know, make sure personnel department's doing this or that?
So in most, I don't think that the state sort of weighed in directly. In most other communities, the Human Resources Department, the Personnel Department, Human Relations, they do administer health insurance benefits. At some point in the distant past, benefits were originally in personnel, as I understand it. They migrated over to Treasurer Collector. They were under the auspices of the previous administration, and then, you know, over the last 4 years, working closely with Elise, we've really, you know, worked together to try to integrate, you know, our two staffs, because you can't really have a comprehensive onboarding process without having benefits aligned with all of the other things that we need to do to get our employees processed. So bringing Nancy sort of under our fold, I think just makes that a more comprehensive process. But we're going to continue to work together. As Elise talked about, you know, the Treasurer's Office has done and continues to do yeoman's work, particularly on the accounting side with regards to ACA compliance. And so it is just from a structural standpoint for our employees and our job seekers, you know, making sure that we're offering sort of a better one-stop experience, which had not been the case here before.
Thank you for elaborating on.
Excellent, thank you. Councilor Ellingson.
This is in regards to Councilor Field's comment and question as well, and that's why I would like to say thank you to our treasurer as well. I forgot to mention how hard and difficult it is. In every organization, there's what we call certified application counselors, and for her to achieve 99% and individually looking at each employee of this city, it's just a phenomenal work. It's just amazing. So we just want you to know that that you're recognized and acknowledged for that feat.
That's an A+, right?
Thank you. I usually ask questions, but I rarely praise just my personality, but thank you.
Amen to that.
Anything else? Drew, in a minute or less, could you just tell me or tell us about the employee portal that's called Velocity and what that's all about that you'd like to implement?
Yeah, so Velocity is something that we're going to do more work on this year. We've had some structural issues with Velocity and trying to get it. So it's a training portal.
Oh, okay.
So it's a training portal. We have a 3-year contract. We started using it last year. We've had some technical glitches that we've been trying to work out, and our goal is to make it more fully functional for the next fiscal year.
So it's like professional development on a portal
exactly,
for all
right.
workers?
Yeah, and we're hoping that that they're going to have some cybersecurity offerings. That was one thing that they're looking to add. So that is our hope to more effectively build on that for FY20.
It's not like the schools where they have this SES system, a self-employee.
Completely different.
That's we have that as well here on this city side?
You mean the ESS?
Yeah,
Yes,
ESS.
ESS, it's completely different.
Totally different platform.
That's integrated with Munis.
Okay.
So, and that really does help us
Is
keep
that
track
for
of
sick leave
vacation
or
time.
personal time
Exactly.
and vacation? Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you.
clarifying. Any other questions for Drew? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's go right over to ISD. Director Donovan, Mike Donovan, Inspectional Services Department. Good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon, councilors. Inspectional Services is 3 divisions, and they have both been level funded with the exception of increases in contracts and contractual agreements. The Inspectional Division has been working hard to fully integrate itself with technology. The portal is what we call the portal. Our electronic communications with the public has been implementing more and more of our permits. We probably have about 60% of our permits now that you can apply for, pay for, and receive online without coming to City Hall. And we're working this year to finish off the rest of those permits. We have also implemented the periodic inspections. As you're aware, we do rental unit inspections under the city ordinance from 2020. And in conjunction with that, our building inspectors are doing the portions of the building that the sanitary inspectors do not do. The sanitary inspectors inspect inside the apartments. The building inspectors, once every 5 years, are required to inspect the common areas of the apartments. So we're working on that program with our people so that 5 years from now, we can look back and say that every apartment building in the city, every rental unit has been not only inspected, but the exteriors and the common areas of the buildings have been inspected too, so that it's a closed loop with housing in Lynn. It's one of the city's housing production plan's goals is to provide safe housing for people, and this is how we are seeking to achieve that. The Public Health Division, this past year, we've opened up space down on the first floor for the community center, which they can use to host different programs, events, clinics, and it seems to be going very well. We're working on an accreditation of the Public Health Division, and I think that the improvements that we've made at City Hall will help in that respect. As you know, the Public Health Director is no longer with us. She has moved on, so City is seeking a new Public Health Director, so when we do receive that individual, I'll be able to give you a better report of where we're going in that direction. As it is now, we've made a lot of gains down there. COVID came along and put a lot of stresses on the Public Health Division. They did a very good job responding to those stresses and working with the community to do everything that could be done to help people. The Facilities Division is very involved in the schools with upgrades to the schools, energy efficiency, increases in betterment of the infrastructure in the schools. As you know, a lot of our buildings are well over 100 years old, and the focus this year is going to be upgrading fire alarms, upgrading electrical services, upgrading the distribution of electricity through the schools so that, given the number of electronic devices being used in the classroom these days, some of these old buildings are sorely lacking power in these rooms. And our goal is to go through the older buildings and increase the distribution of electricity in the classroom so that extension cords aren't being run all over the place to try to power the equipment that's being used. We also have a number of MSBA projects going on. The Lynn Tech main building is getting windows and doors, and the Shoemaker School is getting a roof this summer. We're also looking at floor and lighting replacement projects at the Ingalls School and at the second floor of the Breed School. New ceilings, new lighting, and new flooring. I am available to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Councilor Staben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions, Mike. One, how are the inspections going on the multifams with Safe Built?
Not well.
Not well.
Not well. Right now, we're in the process of bringing that work back in-house. We're negotiating, dealing with the impacts of doing so with Local 193, who represents the health and the inspections and inspectional division. So we're working to bring that work back in-house, but bring it in-house, which will require an additional staff of approximately 4 people. Now, the program itself is a fee-based program, so it'll cover the costs of the employees and their health insurance and everything. So,
It'll be cost neutral.
yes, I've spoken with the mayor's office, the CFO's office. It'll definitely be cost neutral to the city, and it'll give us more control over what's being accomplished. We've had issues with Safe Built. They're starting up when they did, was not at a good time at the tail end of COVID. Couldn't hire people. People didn't want to get their apartments inspected. So we need to make a change, and we're making a change there. I would anticipate in 90 days, 90 to 120 days, we'll be doing those inspections from City Hall to eliminate any confusion in the past. We'll be sending all communications from City Hall. The portal will be fully open so that people can register their apartments and pay for their inspection using a credit card remotely through the portal. So it'll have a whole new face to that program, hopefully a friendlier face and a more responsive face.
How's compliance been from the property owners?
When we do an inspection, we get compliance. Whether it's within 24 hours, 7 days, or 30 days, we get compliance. The failure rate, I believe, is around 30%. I mean, some apartments people have not been in decades.
I meant just compliance with property owners arranging the inspections and paying the fee.
Right now, we have about 13,000 of potential 18,000 apartments registered. We're still having problems with compliance, getting owners to pay. So we've moved into the next step of compliance where we're fining them. Some people just don't want to conform to the ordinances. So we're working on that. We've tried to be open-minded with people, understanding they possibly didn't get the word, but at this point, citations are being sent out to landlords to come in and register their properties. So.
And one more question in a different direction. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Council Stabbit, absolutely.
I honestly don't know how you keep all the properties straight in this city, especially the conditions of them and all. And the schools are certainly a challenge with their age, but also with some of our fire stations are in pretty bad shape. I know that, I thought a few years back there was going to be a lot of work done to Fayette Street, and I know that there are some issues up in the Highlands as well. In the Fayette Street project, I don't know if COVID had anything to do with it, but seemed to kind of slip away. Is any of that still planned?
So the Fayette project hit a wall. We knew what the cost was to renovate the station, but then there was the matter of relocating the employees while that work was going on. They could not occupy the house while the work is going on, so they have to go somewhere else. And that has just not occurred. We haven't got our hands around that. We need to get our hands around that. And when that happens, it needs to be funded. The cost is now around $5.3 million just to renovate the station, not including the relocation of the station itself.
I remember right, it was about 4 back.
It was around, 4.3.
And that money is gone?
There never was any money. That study was done and presented to the council and to the city on the hopes that we could get a bond to pay for that. So there was no funding identified at the time for this particular project, and there was no funding identified to build temporary quarters. Temporary quarters could have cost up to 25% of the construction cost. So it could have been near $1 million to put up the firefighters for the year while we're spending $4 million to renovate the station. So looking at this project now, it's probably closer to $7 million with the relocation of the house, keeping it live, and then doing the work in the house itself. Hollingsworth, Tower Hill, they were built, if you look at the plans, for horses. They have some structural issues which have been temporarily modified. There's 4x4s holding up the apparatus floor of a Tower Hill. So there's cribbing underneath, it's holding it up. It's not the best condition, but it is functional. And one of the things about the city of Lynn is that I can bring you to a building, you're going to say how bad it is. And I can bring you to another building, and you're going to say, well, this is bad too. I mean, the firehouses are all newer than our older schools. So there's 17,000 children, a few thousand staff in the school buildings. And because of their use, the volume of their use, the number of people in there, they're drawing attention to a lot of our time, energy, and funding, because it's, when you look at the relative issues, and is that apparatus floor working? Yeah, it is working. It's not the best. But there's bricks falling off of the Tracy School. There's bricks falling off of the Druid School. So we go in that direction to handle that problem today. And we have a capital plan in the city, and the Fayette Street Fire Station and the accompanying work of the temporary quarters really needs to be in the capital plan, identify with the spot, and then funded through whatever sources the funding can be done. And just looking at it today, that it probably, the CFO could speak better, that might be 3 or 4 years in the future. I don't know, depending on where we have the ability to fund such work. Looking at construction costs in the past year and a half, we're paying 30 to 40% more for everything that we do. The Pickering School and the estimates we're doing there, there's proof of that. You can see where we were 2 years ago with the estimate, where we are now. It's almost $60 million more on a $130 to $140 million job. The MSBA has shut down the accelerated repair programs, where the city of Lynn was graciously invited into that program many, many times. All the roofs that have been done in the schools in the past 10, 12 years have been done through that program. That program is now shut down, so they can still fund the core programs and build schools. So, yes, long and short of it, the firehouses need work. Fayette Station needs to be rehabbed. And it's a matter of triaging the problems as they come up. There's no, we'd rather be here than there. It's just, does the 1895 building need more work than the 1923 building? Yes, it does.
Council Allenson, and then Council McLean, and then Council Net, and then Council Field. We'll go this way.
All right. Point of clarification, based on Councilor Starwood's question about safe belts. So are we starting it all over again? Are we getting another third party? I'm confused, because this program really gives me a headache, not only me, but other. When you get that phone call and yell, it's just, I thought we're almost done with this.
No, I can't promise the headache's ever going to go away. But we are, I have not yet given the contractor a 90-day notice under our contract for termination, but that'll be coming next week. I've had discussions with them and told them that it's not worked out and we need to part ways. It's a 5-year contract that was signed in 2001. So we're 2 years into a 5-year contract, and we are going to part ways. When we do that, we're going to bring that program into City Hall, and we'll be working that with inspectional department, inspectional division employees. So we can be more responsive. If you call us, we'll be more responsive than they would have been to you. There's no question. The vendors are always third parties out there, and it's awkward sometimes with communication, because you have to call me, then I have to call them, and they call me back, and then I have to call you. But this will be direct. They'll be right down the hall, and we'll be working from City Hall. Program hasn't changed. We're still chasing landlords who don't want to register their apartments, and the inspections are time-consuming to arrange, but they will get done.
So if my house has been inspected already, so I'm off the hook?
If your house has been inspected and it's been passed, you're good for 5 more years.
5 more years, okay. So that was, you answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McLean.
Hello. I'm wondering about the strain on your department as far as personnel goes. How are you guys doing in terms of personnel, and how are the response times for like things such as down wires in the city or broken traffic lights that aren't working, things like that?
So in regards to traffic lights and down wires, unless it's a fire alarm wire and the antiquated system that's still out there in the poles, down wires would go right to National Grid. We won't touch it down power wire. Traffic system, my crew will respond to it and make it safe. And then we work with a third party, a contractor, a traffic signal contractor, put the signals back. We're not equipped to install new traffic signals. We haven't been equipped to install traffic signals probably since around 2003. The city stopped. They stopped paving streets themselves. We stopped picking up the trash, and we stopped installing traffic signals and went out to a vendor because of the specialized equipment you need and the experience and the training to keep up at it all day, every day. So I feel that we're doing well. We've just made a number of hires on the maintenance crew side. We had some vacancies in there for a while. People were out on workman's comp. The crew was down. There's been retirements. We're advertising for 2 people right now. We've hired an electrician, 1 maintenance craftsman. We have 2 more spots for maintenance craftsmen when we hire them. I feel we'll be at a level that we can give the emergency response that the community is looking for and that we had in the past. It's been a couple tough years between COVID and people leaving and not being replaced. It's very difficult for us to hire people right now. We'll put out an application on a very good job and we might get 3 responses. And it's difficult. We've just put on 10 custodians in the public schools. They'll be phasing in over the next month. So come September 1st, we'll be fully staffed, and there should be no employees on workman's comp at that time. So we'll be back where we need to be with essentially new employees in almost 25% of the positions on the custodial side.
My other question is that it says the new independent unarmed crisis response team is going to be under public health. Are you aware of that? And what does that entail for your department? Since there's no department head for the public health.
The department head, she left last Friday was her last day. And we're seeking another department head. And yes, that's a new task that's been bestowed upon this department. And the previous public health director was working with the mayor's office and how this would all work, and I fully expect that the new public health director will do the same and support the effort and do what needs to be to get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. We'll move right over to Councilor Net.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Donovan, I have a couple of questions for you. So in this, you said you respond to over 3,000 complaints. What kind of complaint you usually receive? And also the other question is, we see a lot of rundown homes and buildings, and so how often you revisit them, and what can we do? Because this creates a lot of rodent, and so we still issue citation for them. Could you explain that?
Yes, sir, we do. The majority of our complaints are regarding rodents, trash, weeds, quality of life type complaints in the neighborhoods. And we will respond to the complaints. We'll give an order, we'll give a citation. We still have the baiting program that homeowners can sign the liability waiver, and we'll bait their property. We're also working with Development Committee, Housing Production Plan Committee, and getting some of our softwares better to better track things. If there's a vacant property, we'll go out, we'll identify the owner if we can, we'll board it up, we'll clean it up. We'll do the clean and lean. We've been working with the law department very intensively in the past couple of years. They've provided great support for us to be able to go out, do something to recover the funds. When we clean up a property, we'll send the bill to the owner, and if they don't pay, then the law department will take over that way. We respond to every complaint that comes to us. We can't always fix a lot of complaints. Sometimes there's one property in Ward 6, I'm not going to say the address here, where the person who owns the property pays their taxes, but the property's run down. They have something going on. Apparently, they may be a hoarder or not. And this has been going on for a couple of years. We have to go to the Board of Health. We have to prove that it's a nuisance, and then we have to go clean it up. On Pinkham Street, we've done the same thing. On Parkland Ave, we've done the same thing. When we have a property that does not want to keep itself clean, there's a process, and unfortunately it's a long process because people have their rights to their property. One man's trash is another man's treasure. I've been told that a million times. So you have to do this in a way that respects people's rights while maintaining public health. So there's never a loss for complaints, but we do respond to them. We track every complaint we get. It goes into the system. It stays there. You can't erase a complaint once it goes into the system. And maybe 3% of them, at best, end up in court. The rest are usually resolved by the property owner within a month.
So if they keep ignoring us, so what is the next process we should do?
I'm sorry that...
So if they continue to ignore us, so what kind of enforcement are we continue to do that?
If the property owner is ignoring us and our endeavor to get them cleaned up, we start with an order, give them a timeline, they don't comply, then we'll give them another order and some fines. If they don't comply, then we'll bring the law department, bring the problem to the law department, and get the law department's assistance in filing something, whether we go to the Board of Health or we go to court. Probably we'll go to the Board of Health, have it declared a nuisance, and then from there, do a clean and lien. We'll clean it and then lien the property. It's very, and City Solicitor's Office could explain it probably better than I can, but you have to hit every step in the right manner, otherwise we're not going to get the matter resolved, because we have to follow every rule in the court system to make sure that we're not violating anybody's rights.
Or we get the court involved in the end.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilor Field, do you have questions still?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions. Thanks, Mike. You mentioned terminating the contract as far as the rental inspections. With that being a 5-year contract, do you foresee any legal action, or is there a buyout, or is there such clauses that they haven't met that are going to be determined?
They have not met a number of clauses in this contract, and that would be the basis for termination of the contract.
Is there any buyout?
I do not anticipate any buyout. It's a performance contract where they, once they perform a task, they get paid for that task. They have not been performing the tasks. If the inspections haven't been getting done, the registrations haven't been getting done. They've had a real personnel problem over there. They just let go over half of their staff last month. They let them go.
Next question. I know you touched on some of the fines and stuff that you issue and compliance and stuff. I know I co-chair the litter committee with Councilor Shakutis, our vice president. A lot of the issues that we hear have to do with we did have a program with the trash, the waste management barrel compliance, where people were being fined if their barrels were overflowing and leading to a litter problem, or exacerbating the litter problem that we have. And then also on dumpster compliance, we're trying to improve those ordinances with the work of the law department and other departments. Where are we at as far as those two issues?
We've increased our dumpster compliance. Starting in 2020 with COVID, the dumpsters became more of a problem as people were working from home, or that they weren't going to work anymore. We have a complaint, we'll respond immediately. We've worked with a lot of landlords to either move their dumpsters, to increase their collections, say from once a week or twice a week to 3 times a week, so that we're not getting the buildup of trash. As the rules change in the Commonwealth, it makes things a little bit more difficult for that. I mean, before you could throw a mattress in the dumpster, now you can't throw a mattress in the dumpster. So it makes enforcement more difficult for the landlord, too. We'll work with them. They have to follow the rules. I know we're going through the dumpster regulations to try to upgrade them. But it's a matter of attention to the landlord to get things done right. I mean, if I ask my people to come down, I could give you a couple addresses that habitual problems. I can drive by it every day and the dumpster's overflowing. And with those people, we have to get the city solicitor involved and either bring them to court or they have to spend more money. They have to increase their tipping from once a week to 3 times a week or something. So, and no matter how well the ordinance is written, this is something that the landlord needs to take, and we have some very good landlords in the city, but they have to take a hold of because it's their property, it's their trash being generated from their buildings, and there's no way to really legislate that. The only way to get through to them is the citations, giving them tickets, and then following up and collecting on those tickets.
And as far as the barrels?
The barrels?
That program just ended where there was a compliance person?
Yes, to my knowledge, that person was working out of the Department of Public Works, so Mr. Hall might be able to answer that question better, but to my knowledge, that grant that funded that has passed.
Okay. And my final question, you did mention the work that you're doing in the schools, and you said the program ended for MSBA. Are they funding any of the work that we're doing, and if they are, what percentage? You know, obviously, we can see with the Pickering project and how gross the MSBA has been, as I think that's a soft term, at the percentage of reimbursement when it's supposed to be 80%, and it's now well under 50% for the Pickering reimbursement. Are you receiving any reimbursement for any improvements that you're doing with the schools?
Yes, sir. So the 2 programs are different with the MSBA. There's the core program, which is a new school, or in addition to a school, and then there's the accelerated repair program. The accelerated repair programs, we've pretty much received almost 80% on every project. I mean, we're doing a roof. They'll pay for the roof and all the associated work. What they won't pay for is like a roof over a field house or a roof over a pool house. They just won't. It's their rules. It's always been in their rules. So the city has to do that part. At the Shoemaker School, I anticipate that we're going to get a full 80% reimbursement. The Druid School was accepted into the program. We have not been accepted all the way yet. We're still in the feasibility stage, so it hasn't come to the council. We haven't got permission from the MSBA to move forward. That's a window and door project, which we're hoping that we'll get into. That'll be a couple $2 million. Again, 80%. I believe that we'll be getting the Lynn Tech door and window project going on right now is a $10 million project. We probably will be down around 75%, 70% because of the pool house and the field house not getting reimbursed for some of the work done in those spots. And sometimes on these programs, we come in, we have to do some handicap upgrades because the buildings are old and they don't necessarily meet the handicap code. They'll fund some of them, like at Shoemaker, this grant's going to be funding a new ramp, and a new bathroom, but they won't go beyond that. If we have to put an elevator in a school or a lift somewhere in the school, they won't participate in that. But I know the core program has changed completely, and I think a lot of that has to do with the inflationary effects we're feeling, but the accelerated repair program has really been good to the city of Lynn. We've done a large number of roofs and windows and door programs that we otherwise would not have seen because of the costs.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hogan?
Mike, back on the dumpster thing, these landlords that are getting multiple complaints about overflowing dumpsters, can we force them to get an additional dumpster? Is there a way that, with our hands tied, or?
I would defer to the city solicitor on that one, but what I would say is that we would take them to the Board of Health and declare their property a nuisance and have the Board of Health give them some orders about what they can and can't do on their property in regards to how much trash they can keep there. I think in the long run, the answer is yes, we can, but it won't be just an inspector walking out there and saying, you need another dumpster, because It may be that they need to tip it every day versus what they're tipping. They need to have better quality control over their tenants so that they're actually putting the bags in the dumpster. I've seen dumpsters that are half full, but the bags are all around the outside because the people just didn't put them in. So we can work with them to convince them that this is the best thing for them to do rather than getting a $300 ticket every day for a long period of time.
No, your staff has been outstanding getting out to those complaints and issuing those citations, but it's just I have numerous complaints in my ward that we're going through constantly. You know, you get, of course, the rats come because they're overfilling. You guys get out there, find them. And then I go down there, I take a picture, and there are multiple dumpsters overflowing, jam-packed. So that's just, you know, an idea that I just think I know we did a little work on our dumpster and changed a little bit of the policy, but we definitely got to keep at this. And if we got to talk with the law department, we can put all our heads together just to make this a lot better. Thanks your staff for responding. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from councilors? Thank you, Mike, for your time.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank my staff. They do a very good job keeping all this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to apologize. Next, we're going to have Chief Reddy come up for the Lynn Police Department, but normally, because I came in late, I would normally put the chief and Chief Sullivan first and second, respectively, because of public safety. I failed to do that tonight. I apologize. If I'm around next spring, I will definitely do that.
Me too.
Okay, we have a deal. Sorry to keep you, Chief. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to offer some input regarding the proposed FY24 Police Department budget. I want to thank Mayor Nicholson and the members of the council for your consideration and support when determining our budget for the coming year. As many of you know, over the past several years, there has been a significant transition of personnel in the police department. Thanks to the support of the mayor, we've been very proactive in attempting to hire new personnel as veteran officers depart. I'm happy to say that as we've made very strong progress in that area over the past year, and it's our intention to continue to hire to fill open positions so that we have sufficient personnel to meet the needs of this growing community. After a period of reduced crime, we are now experiencing increases that are consistent with the pre-pandemic levels. In response to that, in the coming year, we anticipate that we will be filling open positions in the area of traffic enforcement, investigative units, and community engagement positions. We also intend to expand the assignment of school resource officers to the extent that our staffing allows. In the FY 2024 budget, there's also a small or an overtime reduction in our budget. This may present challenges because of the unpredictability of events that occur throughout the year, which may require significant commitment of personnel resources. We also intend to continue our commitment to providing our officers with enhanced training so that they have the tools necessary to meet the challenges that they can experience in our community as part of the public safety response. Should those issues adversely impact our budget, we will keep you advised and make you aware of the reason for that. We also continue to operate with fewer non-sworn personnel than the department was authorized 10 years ago. This is particularly challenging as we experience increased administrative needs associated with the body-worn camera program, increased freedom of information requests, and similar duties, as well as significant needs for positions in victim services, enhanced crime analysis and intelligence. We hope to address some of those needs through grant opportunities in the coming year, but that is uncertain. In the past year, we are grateful to have identified grant funding that did allow us to hire a crime analyst. She came on board in April, and she has really been a significant enhancement to our ability to understand our data so that we're better able to determine where our resources are most effectively deployed, and we believe that's an area that we want to continue to embrace and learn from. Got to check my notes. As the community grows, the requests for service and engagement continue to grow as well. We're committed to meeting the demand through professional police services. As part of that commitment, we have engaged in really robust training in the areas of mental health response, active shooter response, and as well as de-escalation, use of force in other areas that will help our officers to respond to meet the challenges that they face out in the community in a manner that helps us to ensure the safety of the community and treating all individuals with dignity and ensure justice. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Chief. Council Field?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, as the new chair of the Public Safety, I know we've talked about some things already, so I look forward to meeting with you to discuss even further some other things. I want to commend you and your entire staff for the work that they do day in and day out. A couple of questions that I have. You mentioned traffic enforcement. Are we doing much now as far as an assigned division or no?
Currently, we have a lieutenant and one traffic investigator, full-time enforcement. My intent in the coming year is to add at least 2 more traffic enforcement officers. That will get us back to where we were approximately before the financial situation that the city faced a number of years ago. And I think with the growing traffic challenges, it's the #1 complaint we get from across the community. We're also being creative about that and using technology to our advantage. In the budget, I want to thank the CFO and the mayor for providing some funding for traffic trailers that allow us to deploy throughout the community so we can provide messaging while also assessing speed. So residents know that we hear them, we're aware of their concerns, but they're essentially a force multiplier where we can't put a body, we can at least put a speed enforcement device to let them know and warn the motoring public. And we're using tools like that wherever possible.
My next question, you mentioned the body cameras. Are you seeing this has become a routine during litigation where the attorneys for the defense are requesting public records for the body cameras, and that's adding to an expense?
Actually, one of the biggest areas that's occurring is insurance companies are requesting body-worn cameras for almost every crash that we go to. So that's a significant increase in freedom of information requests. We're obligated to respond to those, and each video has to be redacted. So there's a time allowance there. We do charge for that, but we charge the cost of the lowest individual capable of doing it, which it's complicated, but it still creates a significant drain on the hours required of the lieutenant who has to do that. But in terms of prosecutions, the DA's office has access to all the body-worn cameras, and usually as part of discovery, they're sharing them with the defense as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And my last question, as far as the dog enforcement, I know with the North Shore Animal Hospital locally shutting down within the past year, it's been a strain to locate a city pound, and I know that was a challenge. Where to me it doesn't make sense that if I pick up a stray dog, I can bring him to Northeast Animal Shelter on Highland Ave, but our dog officer in the city can't because contractual reasons. How much of a strain is that? Because these are some of the calls that myself and my colleagues get a lot.
It's been a significant strain, and just for a brief history, the city has long had a policy where residents come across stray dogs, they could bring them to the North Shore Animal Hospital. The city saw it as a way to get a stray dog off the street to a safe place, and then the animal control officer would follow up later and try to identify the owner. Without that local option, we had temporarily engaged with a company out of Middleton that a number of agencies had used, and that looked very promising, and they were shut down because they're doing more than they had done in the past. They're required to make some changes to their facility, so they're currently not available. So right now we're investigating other options, and I really want to give credit to Lieutenant Dave Hunter and Animal Control Officer J.R. Plourde for the work they've done in this area to try to identify options. The Northeast Animal Shelter will take animals in, but they want us to come and basically take them from them very quickly. Because they say, first of all, they're not inland, they're in another community, but my understanding is also that they don't have the capacity to be the full-time stray dog boarder for our community. So again, the personnel at the police department have really worked diligently to try to identify resources. Our hope is that the facility in Middleton that we're engaged with, once they get their facility restored or refurbished to meet the requirements of the local authorities up there, we hope to contract with them and use them. But even then, there's going to be increased costs because what's happening is people, without the local option, they bring them to the police station or other local things, and we have to call out the animal control officer to take them up there. So.
And as far as that, with that increased expense, is there a consideration of opening our own pound within the city?
I have not considered that. I don't, and I think that would require, there's a lot of regulation involved with there, and in addition to building the facility, because you have to be heat and air conditioning, 24-hour oversight and care. We had, I think it was a good reason that we contracted with private facilities, and the North Shore Animal Hospital was outstanding because they could do everything. We're hoping to have a similar thing, but I think it'd be cost prohibitive for us to open our own. I mean, you never say never, but I don't see that as the best option.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Net, then Councilor Staubach.
Thank you. Chief, this is a great report, and you do a great job in the department for keep us safe. I appreciate that. However, there's still a lot of noise complaint after 10 o'clock. So especially weekdays, and people need to go to sleep, they have to go get up in the morning, go to work. And they said every time they call the police, they go, but when the police go back, then the noise starts all over again. So come up to the point that they get really tired, and they just keep complaining, and they ask us what should we do to control this. I know that we can give them citation or warning, whatever, but it seems like it's not working. Some places, not the whole city, like mostly in downtown.
No, I think that noise complaints are, again, another area that we have a significant issue with in the community, because it's a very congested, densely populated community. And the frustration that your constituents have expressed to you, we certainly understand that. I will tell you that generally what we do is try to go and give a warning first, rather than go right into enforcement. And, you know, the noise ordinance, some people might call earlier in the evening, and then it's more subjective whether what's excessive to you might not be excessive to another. So these are some of the challenges that the officers face when going there. The later in the night it is, the more likely that it's a problem. They'll get a warning, and then there should be some enforcement action. But I'll be honest and say that we don't always issue a citation on even the second response. We look to solve the problem. But what I would encourage you to tell your constituents to do, we don't want them to sit home frustrated. We want to hear from them. If they feel like the officers didn't handle it well, or if they just want to know what happened, they can call in and they can ask to speak to the commanding officer, and he'll explain to them directly. And then he'll also be aware of it and make sure that we are taking appropriate action when we return there. So, and we're happy to hear from them anytime.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staubach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my questions are both along the lines of what Councilor Net and Councilor Field had brought up. When it comes to noise, especially in the summertime, and it's not just parties, it's cars.
Yep.
You know, the noise that emanating from vehicles, traveling through the neighborhoods, blasting stereos and all. And I know that the offices also, especially on a busy night, need to triage calls as they come in. In the summertime, are extra officers on to kind of concentrate on those type of...
We have a standard deployment plan, so we do not hire extra officers just for noise. Although if we're aware of a particular event, like, for example, on the July 4th period, we put additional officers on because we know we're going to have increased call volume. And there might be other periods where we do something similar. Just a couple of things in terms of the noise issue. What we've seen in recent years, and this is particularly occurring off the Linway, but it's also occurring in other parts of the city, where you get huge numbers of cars who just suddenly come together. And they load up these incredibly large speakers on their vehicles and blast the music out. So much so that we actually get complaints from Nahant and throughout the area. The way we've tried to address that is because it can be very challenging when you go there and you've already got the problem, and there's literally anywhere from 20 to 50 to more cars. We try to go increase patrols on the areas that we know where there's a problem. So as soon as the first couple start to show up, we send them on their way. And then we also try to use traffic enforcement as a means for compelling compliance or getting to, frankly, to stay away. So coming back to your initial point, Counselor, when a vehicle's driving down the street with a loud muffler or a motorcycle, it can be very difficult because, when you call the police, unless they were right there, it's difficult to be able to take action. And then oftentimes, especially with motorcycles, there's a decibel meter that has to be considered. These are challenges in the city. The scooter problem we've had contributed to that. These are very, I think in living in a city like Lynn, and I've lived here my whole life, you want to be able to enjoy some peace and quiet when you get home in the evening, and hearing that excessive noise, I certainly understand the frustration of the people in the community. We try to identify the problem areas and give extra attention to them, and then within the problem areas, if there's particular problem individuals. I know sometimes some members of the council will share locations with us where you're getting complaints from constituents, and we put that out in roll call and tell our officers, to give extra attention to those areas as a way to try to focus in on where the problems, because we do have limited resources in a city as large and as active as this one is.
I always try to, my first question when somebody calls on the noise complaints is it predictable?
Yeah.
Is it set days at set times? Then it's easier to enforce
Right.
and say, hey, can you send somebody at these dates within this window of time to address it? With the total amount of officers that you have, are you comfortable with your staffing level?
No, but we're getting there. Currently, we have 182 officers, so we've made progress. But we have 8 officers in the academy that should be coming out in late July. But we're also going to have a round of retirements in the next 2 months. And then we have 10 officers geared up to go to the academy in July. So incrementally, we're making progress, and that's why I'm very hopeful about being able to expand into some of these additional duties that you talked about. We can focus on some of these other problems with, if you're not answering calls all shift long, and your job is to focus on whether it be traffic enforcement or motor scooter violations or some other category of crime or disorder, then you can give more attention, you can have a more significant impact. And that's the goal here. And we have tried to be very creative, and we continue to try to identify ways to promote a recruitment, to get more individuals willing to seek a career in law enforcement. And also, I'm constantly speaking with other chiefs and seeing what they're doing in terms of different programs for retention, to keep our officers here. In the last few months, we have added personnel to the gang unit, to our criminal investigations division, but we've also had to add people in the last couple of years to evidence control and to video evidence. So those are administrative tasks that we didn't have 5 and 10 years ago, but they're very necessary now. So to answer your question, Council, we're not comfortable yet. We're hoping to get there. We're certainly making progress.
Thank you, Chief.
Council Hogan.
On the scooters, mopeds, and dirt bikes, are we going to continue working with the state police? I know they helped us out a lot last year with locating where they were parking, and
right.
Touch on that.
Yeah, we were working with the Air Wing last year when we had some of those targeted enforcements, and I've authorized, the gang unit had primary responsibility for that, working in conjunction with the traffic unit, and they developed a relationship with the Air Wing and the state police. It's hit or miss because obviously they're in demand for many communities for many reasons, but they've been fantastic supporters, and whenever they're able to do that, they do support us, and we're going to continue. Been relatively quiet this year, although just in the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see the presence in some of the complaints. Our objective is to enforce and tow whenever possible, and we take it very seriously, and we're going to be being very proactive in that area. And we're also looking at, again, speaking with other communities, we're always looking to, poach the next great idea. So we're looking at some other ideas that, if they pan out, we may be able to expand on in the future.
Yeah, the community has been great on that, helping out. They're reaching out to us. They're reaching out to you guys, identifying the locations where they're
Gathering, Council, just so you know, gathering locations, specific descriptors, any of that tip information is very helpful to us, and then we can focus our surveillance efforts.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Hogan. Council McLean?
Hello, Chief Reddy.
Counselor.
I was wondering about the training you mentioned. You said that some of the training was including in this budget that you have. Are all of the officers, I know there's a huge force that you have, are all the officers taking part in this de-escalation training that you guys
Yes.
mentioned?
So we have annual in-service training that every officer has to undergo. And as part of that, in the use of force component, there's also always a de-escalation component to that. And we've done that regularly, and we continue to do it. In addition, through some funding we got from, in our budget last year, we have been able to acquire some additional equipment and software that allows us to do scenario-based trainings that have a range of, it can be de-escalation, it can be contact and control, it can be the other things, and we could do that right in-house. Some of it we're doing on shift, so it's a cost savings for us, and we just have to have the instructor. And some of it we do as part of our annual requirement for in-service training. In addition to that, we've committed to, we're trying to get every one of our officers to go to the 40-hour crisis intervention training. In the last year, our entire department participated in CBT training with ROCA, which was very well received. We have, I believe we're currently at 9 officers that are certified as hostage negotiators. We require officers to go to a number of specialized trainings depending on what their assignment specialty is. For example, to homicide school or sexual assault training school, domestic violence, and a whole host of those. That's more individualized, but in general, all our officers hit those in-service and other trainings are some of our most important.
Now, are there any cultural sensitivity trainings?
So we have, as part of our different training, we've done implicit bias training and similar trainings, both in-house and with other organizations in the past, and we're continuing to be committed to that as part of our efforts. I think the MPTC recognizes the importance of that as well. So in the annual they dictate what our in-service training is. As part of that, we generally participate in some component of that, and that was part of this year's curriculum as well. But in addition to that, we certainly seek opportunities to engage in similar training whenever we can in-house.
Okay. And when you say in-house, are these led by officers, these trainings? Are they led by, like...
Mass Police Training Council?
Oh, okay.
Mass Police Training Council, many of their instructors are sworn law enforcement or retired, but they also have civilian instructors and other specialists. They're provided by the state. In-house, we have officers who are trained more for, we do CPR, firearms, defensive tactics, de-escalation, and a host of other things. But the annual in-service training, those instructors are part of the MPTC program.
And I want to thank Councilor Field for his traffic question. I've gotten a lot of questions about the traffic as well and how people are speeding and stuff like that. And there was one of, well, she's not our constituent, she's from another community, but she mentioned speed bumps in her community.
Mention what?
Speed bumps being used to, slow down people in her community. So I was wondering, has that been explored, especially on Pleasant Street?
No, honestly, I recently read something about that too, and I was curious. It's an area we're going to have to look into, because what we had been led to believe in the past is that the state has certain restrictions on where speed bumps can be installed, and then it can be a very costly measure. So I honestly don't know enough about that particular issue, Council, but I did see the article, and I think it's something we'll have to learn more about, so I'll be happy to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
We could follow up with Andy Hall as well. He'll be coming up next soon. So that's good. Good questions. Anything else from
Last
Council?
question.
Councilor Ellingson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know everybody's hungry and want to leave this room, but since you guys asked about traffic, Lynn Drive, I know it's state, I always get calls about that. Do you have any coordination with our state police, with any of the city, state-owned streets that are in our city? What are the protocols there?
Well, we have a very strong relationship with the state police, and our traffic unit will share complaints with them. We frequently get complaints about the lights at the intersection of Nahant Street and Lynn Drive, and people making illegal lane changes, and sometimes it's about trucks on Lynn Drive and a number of issues like that, and certainly speeding along the Lynnway. So we do share that information with the Revere Barracks, and we have a strong relationship with them. but we don't directly coordinate our enforcement efforts. Our traffic team does do speed enforcement on the Lynnway as well. Even though it's primary state jurisdiction, we get the complaints to Lynn residents, so we try to give some time to that as well.
Okay. You answered the question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Anything else for Chief Reddy? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Next up is Chief Sullivan, Lynn Fire Department. Good afternoon, Chief. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, councilors. I'd like to thank the mayor, Mr. Bertino, Mr. Spencer, and all your staff. I'd especially like to thank my staff for getting me up to speed since this is my first budget process, and I'd like to thank everyone for your help getting me through this. So as you can see in your budgets in front of you, we've had a slight increase to our budget. We've had what we thought was an unusual year or two of injuries, orthopedic injuries. We're finding it's probably the new norm. So the city, thankfully, has come through and addressed that. So they've increased our overtime budget. So again, thank you for that. One of the goals that I had when I came in here was to improve our efficiency in data collection. So currently the software that we're using is called Firehouse, and it's at the end of its life cycle. So we're getting some new software, hopefully that's going to begin its implementation on June 1st. With that, we'll be able to obviously track all of our incidents, but also manage all of our assets and generate better reports so that we can make better decisions moving forward. We were also able to work with the city to increase our professional development. So most of our training has been handled in-house. I'd like to think I'm the product of professional development and getting outside the community and seeing what other people have to offer and how other communities do things, which will then open our minds. So the city has also seen value in that, so they've also helped us increase that professional development line. We're in the process of hiring 5 new firefighters. We've had a few retirements since I took office in January. I do expect to have at least another half a dozen by next year. So we will be trying to maintain that, our numbers. You can see our capital request line is pretty low. I'd like to thank the prior year's diligence for that. So many of you know that we have 4 engines on order. One was bought through you guys. One of them we got through a grant, and 2 of them we got with ARPA funds. So that will significantly help our downtime. So again, we appreciate that. So lastly, I'd like to say we're working with other departments. We're going to bring back the youth program that Chief Archer had started last year. Last year was certainly a challenge going through the whole summer, so we're going to do just one session. I believe it's going to be in July. We're working with community development to get the children paid as well. So again, the schools are going to choose the students, community development will get them paid, and then we'll give them the training once July comes. So some of the challenges I see, EMS is certainly a challenge. So throughout the country, emergency medical response, the ambulance companies are having a significant challenge. As you know, we run one ALS unit. A lot of the North Shore, what happens is their ambulance will come into, the employees will come into work, they get in the ambulance and they drive off to an unknown community. We've been able to keep our ambulance for our citizens, and I intend to keep it that way. The challenges moving forward is just response times. So we can certainly get on scene pretty quickly with our fire personnel, but sometimes getting that transporting ambulance is a little bit longer than we'd like, and we're working with the law department to address those as well. Something for maybe later on next year or something, and this is going to take some creative thinking on our part. We are going to need a new ladder truck at sometime in the near future. The problem with that is it takes 3 years to build it, and right now the cost is about $1.8 million. So how do you sign off on a ladder for an unknown cost and an unknown delivery date down the road. So we'll have to put our heads together to address that in the future. Any questions?
Questions will go Council Staba, then Council Field. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Chief. What has your call volume been in the last year compared to the year previous?
Yeah, we had a slightly larger increase. I think we did just over 16,000 calls. So one of the things that I added in, you can see in the budget, I added a couple-page excerpt describing what our fire department does and how it looks. So the specific numbers are in there. We generated from our CAD system. Challenge to get the numbers, which will be a lot easier once we go with this First Do software. So yeah, our numbers are steadily increasing. You know, so.
And are you seeing a major uptick in medical-related calls, particularly now that we've been adding all this new housing?
So I think our medical responses are somewhere in the 65, 67% of our calls. One of the things that we're working on is identifying incidents that don't necessarily need transport. So our EMS division has been going around and talking with different elderly housing complexes, nursing homes, and just identifying some of the repeat offenders, why are they calling, and how can we get them the services without bringing them to an emergency room and taking up that ambulance that may be needed for a heart attack or some trauma or something like that. So we don't have enough data on that yet. But that's, we're working pretty diligently to find that data.
And you do quite a bit of like lift assist calls as well, correct?
That would be something, you know, that we're gathering the data for. And right now, basically the OEMS, the rule-making authority for the ambulances, once an ambulance gets to the house, they want that person transported. The ambulance companies are supposed to try to talk them into going to the hospital, where we know that not everyone needs transport. So if we can identify these people beforehand and have them get in touch with some, you know, some other means, then we can probably reduce the amount of transports, not the amount of incidents coming into to us, but the amount of draw on our resources.
And with the you know, the former Union Hospital site, there's going to be a few hundred additional senior housing units up there. Now with no Linfield Street Firehouse, that whole region now is serviced out of Broadway, which is a pretty busy house, as we all know. And then when you do have to transport, they're transporting to Salem. Do you foresee the need to have to staff that Linfield Street Firehouse at any time in the future?
I will have a better answer to that as soon as we can get this software up and running and we can find exactly, they're called heat maps. So every time we go on a run, it'll put a dot on the map. The more dots, the bigger the bigger the circle, hence it looks like a fire growing. So once we find out where all our responses are, we can make better decisions on, you know, where our stations are located and where our staffing needs to be.
And final question, Chief. Your staffing level right now, is that at a point where all engines are fully staffed, all apparatus fully staffed 24/7?
Yes, yeah. So we have a minimum manning where we keep a minimum of 35 people on shift at all times. And then at that point, we generate overtime to keep everything in service.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Thank you, Council. Council Field.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thank you so much to you and your staff, you know, like the police department, the fire department, you know, just right up there with the responses, keeping our city safe. So we certainly appreciate that and respect the work that you all do. I think my first question that I had was piggybacked on Councilor Starbird's, and as far as Linfield Street and where those calls are coming from, so we'll look forward to that data.
Yeah.
Once that is in place. A couple of questions I had just kind of over the past couple of years. You mentioned in part of your paragraphs here about the Lynn Woods fire. We have 2,200 acres, and we do what we can with the equipment that we have, and then we rely on the forestry division. And I know we seem to be the first one this year as far as using that. Last year, we seemed to be sixth in line, or whatever, we were in line, and it wasn't available early on. I know we've made investments in into the boat, the cruiser boat, for water rescues and stuff. Is there any consideration for something for the woods within the fleet that we have? I know you mentioned 3 years out for a ladder truck, and then the money that we've already appropriated for 4 new engines. Is there any consideration for something that would help our crew, your crew, get ahead of these woods fires?
Yeah, so small scale right now, we were able to get a Connex box delivered within the past, I think, 2 weeks or so, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It was just as the woods fires were going on. That Connex box is going to store, we have 3 ATVs right now and a UAV, which will hold multiple people side by side. We've also got a portable pump, which we can drag out into the woods that will take, we can drafting is to suck from a static source and then force that water to things, whether it be another fire truck, whether it be another portable pump to relay water where it needs to go. As you know, though, the woods is just so big some places that, these pumps aren't able to get it to those places. So what we'll do is we use the ATVs, the UAVs to get people out there. There is hand crew training, which we've already been in talks with the state to get our people trained. So what does that training do? That training will get our people to think differently than a house fire. So a house fire, we're trained to put the fire out, whereas a woods fire, we're trained to contain it, let it char up certain areas, use the existing features of the woods, so then we make a protective barrier so that if later on the winds pick up, there's no area for that fire to burn and then go after the houses. So as you know, like with the woods, we let it burn right up to the fire roads, and then we stayed at the fire roads with leaf blowers, rakes, and shovels to keep it from jumping into the next patch. So that's some high-level training, which we haven't had a lot of in this area. There are a certain amount of our people that have it. We're looking to get the whole department trained in that.
And one of my final questions, the UAV, the drone, I know that's been, kind of a hot commodity within the city. It's used almost all the time, and it's been a helpful resource, but it's also been going out to other communities. Is that a reimbursement, or is that just an expected coverage that you're providing to other communities that return that favor to us?
So I was going to touch on that in the fire alarm budget, but we might as well talk about it now. So right now, Lynn has 9 certified operators. Our fire alarm budget has some specifics where we can pull money from Swampscott and the Hunt. So we're taking advantage of that for the maintenance side of it. But in talks with them, we're starting a regional drone program where they will provide operators as well, so that if the drone goes out of town, we're not absorbing the cost. Right now, we're using on-duty personnel to go out of town, so it's been very rare that we've actually had to use any kind of overtime funds to send that drone out. One of the times we did send it out was for the explosions up in Ipswich, Newburyport. That's fully reimbursable from the state. So we will get all that money back.
And we have 1 or 2?
We have 1 drone right now. Once this team gets started, there's talks about getting a second drone so that it's always operational, and then we can have one, if one needs to go out for service, we always have another one ready.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions for Chief Sullivan? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate your time.
Fire alarm? Let me talk about fire alarm now.
Oh, emergency management, is that part of your, yes?
Well, so fire alarm was separated out of the, fire alarm and emergency management were both separated. So I have 3 budgets.
Sure, that's fine.
So I'll touch on each of these very
Please
quickly.
do.
And so fire alarm, we're budgeted for 12 operators. Right now, we have 1 in training, and we're in the process of searching for that 12th one right now. So one of the good things with the fire alarm budget, if you can see, part of all of their training and part of their salaries is reimbursed from the state. So that's a significant savings that we get for fire alarm. Like was touched on earlier, the equipment in fire alarm is getting older. We've been in preliminary discussions on how to improve that, and they are very preliminary, nothing we should really talk about at this point, just kind of, high-level thoughts on where we're going to go with that. And then I was going to talk a little bit about the drone, but we've already talked about that. So some of my challenges, I think, would be staffing. So why staffing problems? Our fire alarm operators are hired through civil service, just like the police and fire are, although it's not as well known in the community. So I've been in talks with a lot of the after-school programs, certainly some of the schools already, that to start an awareness program on what civil service is and how the students can get into the system. Not necessarily police and fire alarm, postal, game warden, whatever their track may be. And again, that's not specific to fire alarm, but right now we do not have a lot of Lynn, Swampscott, or Nahant residents on any of the fire alarm lists. So we're pulling from a statewide list right now.
Council Stabbit.
Thank you. Chief, where we do Swampscott dispatch, how is that cost shared?
So Mr. Bertino can probably speak better to that, but that was just renegotiated within the past 2 or 3 months, I think.
Do you want to approach the mic, Mike? Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you. The way it's broken down is the agreement ended and we separated, as the chief spoke, the 3 budgets. So we grab all the costs associated with operating the fire alarm and we divide it by population now. So we will receive substantially more money from Swampscott this year than we have been the last 10 or 20 years because we're doing it on population. So now we have a complete budget. It's broken down. The grants that we get are applied. Everybody gets credit for the grants based on population, and everybody pays their share of the expenses based on population. And that was new this year.
And is there any window of opportunity to expand that to other communities?
I'm sure there is. I think knowing that Revere has their own regional dispatch, I think you would need to look for other partners that would be within our radius that we could connect with. I'm not sure who does Marblehead, but as you know, that some of the regional dispatch centers haven't worked out that well. Ours is working well, so as long as we have 3 communities, they consider us regional, even though somewhere else is around the state they only have 2, but they do consider us regional, so we are eligible for grants. I guess, that would be somebody besides myself that would think that we could take on somebody else, but I do know that, Revere, which is south of us, has their own with another community. I'm not too sure about Linfield and the other ones, but I suppose, it's worth a conversation over time.
Help offset our own costs where the machine is already built.
I agree. That was one of the reasons why we looked at getting a full cost recovery based on population, because it's there, whether you use it, it's the individual circumstance. We just want to share the cost more equitable, and that's why it was negotiated that way.
Okay. All right.
And Mike, before you leave, what was the formula based on prior to population? What had it been for the past decade or two? It was just we were picking up the cost for the other communities?
No, they were paying a small amount, but I believe they were paying on actual usage data.
I see.
Whereas it's a service there, you hope you don't need it, but if you do, so we just changed it, and it probably doubled their costs.
Everyone's paying their fair share now, based on the residents that we respond to.
Correct.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mike.
I have one.
Chief, Councilor McLean.
Uh-oh.
Oh, do you want CFO
Oh, no, for
or
Chief.
Chief?
Me? Okay.
Not for you, no, for Chief. I'm
Chief.
positive.
Chief
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bertino, for putting you on the spot. Thank you.
First, I want to commend you for the things you're doing with the youth, the initiatives that you're
Thank you.
continuing and starting. And I wanted to know what age group are you targeting for your initiatives?
So, using the data from the youth program, we found that the freshmen and sophomores, although they enjoyed the program, they didn't really get as much out of it, whereas the juniors and seniors are still active with the community. Actually, I just got word last night that 2 of them are signing up to be EMTs this week. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so the juniors and seniors are truly responsive to this. The after-school programs, it'd probably be whoever's there, you know what I mean, whatever age group they have. And we'll see. I'm speaking with Raw Arts this coming Friday.
And what are some of the things that the youth are learning?
So obviously they're going to learn some of the basic tactics that we use, forcible entry, hose deployment, climbing ladders, but they're getting them outside of Lynn to also see some of the specialized teams that are out there. So the hazmat teams, the technical rescue teams, all the. They brought them to the Mass Fire Academy. Saw the training that happened out there. So, yeah, it's fun for them, and they're learning a lot.
All right. Well, great job. Great work.
Thank you. Council Field?
Thank you, Chief.
Follow-up?
Chief, question on the fire alarm dispatch. I know expanding would be, as far as compensation good, but as far as a safety standpoint, how safe would be an expansion to other communities?
As for our personnel?
Number of calls coming in, personnel.
Yeah, so I know that there's standards out there. So there's CMRs which dictate, what we have to have, and then there's standards on what we should have. Those go. A lot of it's referred to the 911 call takers, which is the police side. Then we are, a secondary PSAP, so we have the backup in case 911 goes down. We have the backup as well as dispatch. So using those numbers, it's not a clear black and white on that, So certainly if we were to take on more communities, we'd certainly need more help.
And maybe a shameless plug, I know when someone calls 911 from their cell phone, it's not necessarily the most rapid.
Yeah, that goes to the state 911, and then they reroute it over to us.
So it's best to be calling.
Yeah.
Your
Call us.
Call you directly on your phone number.
Yeah.
The best number to reach fire department.
So the fire
If
department.
they were calling from their cell phone.
593-1234.
Thank you.
Easy enough. Thank you. Any other questions, comments for the chief? Seeing none, thank you, Chief.
Lastly,
Yes.
emergency management budget, very small, clerical supplies only. The emergency manager is paid through the fire department budget. That's why it's such a small number there.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also want to recognize and acknowledge local LFD 739 President Mario Lopez is with us as well. Thank you for attending and even sitting next to one another. Let's go to our Harbor Master, Jim Perry. Hi, Jim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. As you can see, the budget hasn't changed much, and matter of fact, it hasn't changed much in my 40 years. But we stand ready to react in emergencies, to assist Lynn Fire, Lynn Police. The equipment is old, but it's usable, and it's safe. So we get by with this little budget with volunteers and donations from the two area yacht clubs. So we're able to get along with it. I don't know if anybody's got any questions, but...
Any questions from councilors for Mr. Perry, Harbor Master Perry? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Good, thank you all.
Thank you for your time. All right, we're going to move right along. We're on our second page, thank goodness. So we've had a lot of engaging
more.
conversations, so it's
5
been
more pages.
very fruitful so far. Okay, DPW Commissioner Andy Hall. Thank you, Andy. Good afternoon.
Andy Filer.
Almost. It's my mind's...
Hi. Andy Hall, representing the Department of Public Works. Firstly, I'd like to thank the mayor and CFO for all their hard work assembling this balanced budget. Approximately $15.9 million, which is needed to run the Department of Public Works. I think an issue that we can all agree exists is litter in our parks and public spaces. This budget includes both capital and operational dollars to help address litter. The budget also includes $1.5 million in paving dollars funded through the ARPA process, which is over and above the $1.5 million we usually receive from the Chapter 90 allotment. I'd like to thank the hardworking men and women that make up the department. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Questions for Commissioner Hall? Start with Councilor Allenson.
Good afternoon, Andy. Commissioner Hall, last year I asked you a question and a request, basically, if possible, to insert some of your budget, a fund for our residents to use when they could not afford the $20 pickup fees to pick up any furniture and stuff. I don't see that in your budget this year. Is there any way we could lobby for this? I'll be asking this question over and over again, year after year. We always have problems with trash left everywhere, mattresses, couch, everywhere, and the reason is always like that. We don't have the money. We could not afford $20. Is there any program that your department could introduce so that some of our residents don't have to pay for this amount?
I mean, I could come up with a program, but it's the money that we need. And so you're correct, it's not in my budget right now. And, you know, now that there's a ban on mattresses, we're seeing more and more in parks and on the street corners, and, you know, we've got piles of them in our yard. It's awful. But I'd gladly work with you to put together a program. So you want to offset the cost of the home pickup?
Correct.
So it's $55 to pick up a mattress at home, and I think it's $26.50 to get a piece of furniture picked up by Waste Management.
I'm fully aware of the amounts and the pricing of furniture, but my question is very simple. Is there a way for us as a city, I know it's very radical, but other cities and towns are doing this, to pay for these on a case-to-case basis? I don't know what guidelines your department would take. Probably check the economic status of a resident, but this is a problem, and we need to find a way. At the same time, at the cost of the city, though it hurts, but we have to do our share as well.
Understood.
Thank you.
Councilor Field.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to comment to kind of on Councilor Allenson's question for the Commissioner. The Chief of Staff, Mr. Tebow, can probably answer it better than I can.
He's here.
He's back. Councilor Allenson's question was about that reimbursement, the coverage program. I know I participated in conversations with the mayor as far as a pilot program to cover the cost of a piece of furniture that can't be picked up that people can't afford. Have we moved? I think it's more preliminary. Have we started that program yet, or with the ARPA, or it's just?
We haven't started yet. We started having some conversations.
You want to come to, just so everybody can hear. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
these
wanna
are
hear this.
they're preliminary discussions.
Yeah, so we've been having some preliminary discussions about what it would cost to subsidize either the cost per unit, like pickup, or entire days. So I think the entire days are a little bit cost prohibitive, but we've been trying to look at seeing if we could pay like a subsidy towards reducing the price that it would cost for the pickup.
Yeah, I'm
For
just
some
glad
of the
that there's a
programs.
conversation happening now. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we wait? I'm fine with that.
No, I just want, I knew you could clarify it better than, because it
Yeah.
was still in
Perfect
its
timing.
infancy.
And in the effort of the time tonight, perhaps we could refer this to Council Lozzi's DPW subcommittee and have a longer discussion at one of our future
Perfect.
council
Chair.
meetings, so we can dive into it a little more, because it is an issue that's affecting all of the residents across the city. And clearly, there's a lot to unpack, so. Any other any question? Yes, Councilor Stabbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Commissioner Hall, I see in the flow chart here, we show the associate commissioner as we always have, but we're adding a second one?
That's correct, yep.
Okay, and are we adding any other DPW employees in the street that person's gonna manage, or?
Negative, no. Negative, no.
Why are we adding a second associate commissioner when we've gone so long with just one?
I think to better supervise the ongoing departments that we have right now, and then that way I can focus on the larger transportation-based projects.
Okay, and is any progress being made on the tree thing? Because it's a nightmare. With dealing with trees, I know that Dan Small is now acting as the tree warden, but from my understanding, there's nobody right now who can
No one qualified to operate the tree truck,
take
yes,
trees
that's correct.
down. And, I mean, I have a constituent for years that a city tree has literally gone under his foundation and is busting up his basement floor. And it's just getting worse, and there's no plan and nobody to deal with the situation. I mean, the trees in the city, there's so many old trees. Even if they're healthy and growing leaves, they're a detriment.
Definitely, we need to maintain the trees.
So what can we do to expedite that situation?
Well, we had a training with our bucket truck provider to train some of the new guys to see who's got an affinity for chainsaw work. It's not for everybody. Being up in the bucket, it sways around. It's not for everybody. And our the tree. So we had two tree guys. One of them left our employ. The second one is out injured, and we expect him back mid-June. So.
Does it make any sense to put out to bid? I mean, I see, tree companies all over the place, trucks running all over. Would it make any sense to maybe put that out to bid?
Oh, we have already, yes. Oh, yeah, we have a, because certain trees are beyond our skill set / equipment. Trees involve cranes, that type of thing. And we have a contract with Mayor Tree right now. And, if we had the money, I could have Mayor Tree cut every tree in the city down. I mean, that's all a matter of money.
Okay, so you're hoping to have,
So I have enough money to pay my employees to use my equipment and cut down trees. If I hire it in, that's probably, quadruple.
okay, so when
So right now, it's kind of selective. Like if we have a giant tree that's hanging and needs a crane, then I call in my contract tree trimmer.
Okay, so in the case of that constituent that I brought up where it's busting up his basement floor from a tree that's out on the sidewalk, I would imagine that would be beyond the scope of one of the DPW staff members, no matter how well they're trained. It would have to go to a contractor.
Very likely, yes.
All right, I'll send that in again.
Okay.
Hopefully that tree can be taken down. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Andy, am I to understand you had put in for an increase in your tree budget, but it was not funded adequately to handle all of the tree issues around the city?
Yeah, I mean, we like to handle things in-house.
Right.
And we're down a man right now.
Yep. You said till mid-June or so?
Yep.
And what about the new hire? When do you see the new hire perhaps taking in the fall, or by the time you interview and find someone worthy candidates?
No, we have new hires now, and I'm trying to see which of the new hires
Oh, they're being trained. That's
would like to head down that road.
The bucket exercise and who's most comfortable?
Yes.
I see. Councilor Field.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy, I know I posed this question to Mr. Donovan. As far as the compliance as far as trash? I know that was a grant-funded position before. Is there any talk of any further grants available for trash barrel compliance on collection day, as far as overflowing barrels? Because that certainly, exacerbates our litter problem that we have from trash just blowing out of the covers that are broken. People aren't responding to the multiple opportunities to have them repaired, either at their own residence or the successful one this past Saturday, or Saturday before at the DPW. Is there any opportunity to fund that position again?
So the grant was through the state, through the DEP, and if the grant presents itself again, we will certainly apply for it.
Okay.
Do our
So it
best
was
to get
just
it.
a one-time thing, and you haven't seen it since?
Yeah, it was recycling coordinator.
Okay.
These were like the oops flags that would be in the recycling that
Right.
you didn't recycle
Yep.
properly to educate.
And it works not only from a litter standpoint, but it works to our advantage keeping compliance with the recycling, because, the recycling gets processed, and we pay based on a material audit. So they take a couple of sample barrels, and they go through everything in those barrels. And if it's, 30% garbage, then that decreases the value of all the hard work that all the rule-following folks do to recycle, and it makes the cost go up.
Wow. Crazy system. Councilor McLean, do you want to follow up on the speed bump that you asked the chief about?
Sure. I was thinking for a solution that I got from another community about speed bumps being placed maybe on side streets that people usually use to avoid traffic lights. Is that something that, a solution that could probably be viable in our community?
We've been reluctant to install speed bumps, I will say. What we've been doing is these bumped-out crosswalks to allow, it narrows the lane and gives the feel that you're going too fast. Pleasant Street, I believe, was mentioned earlier. So there's a approximately $280,000 project to enhance the two crosswalks across Pleasant Street between the Common and Tremont Street. No speed bumps, but bumped out crosswalks and the rectangular flashing beacon to slow the cars down.
Now, the
Councilor Hogan.
bumped-out crosswalks, are they like raised crosswalks that you see in other communities? You ever see the raised crosswalks they have?
They're not raised. The curb juts out, so the cars can be seen. It's on Pleasant Street, for example, the cars line both sides of the street. People seemingly poke out between them. The bump out allows the pedestrian to get out to the driver's side of the car where they can be seen by the oncoming motorists.
All right, thank you, I got you.
Any other questions or comments for Commissioner Hall? Seeing none, thank you very much, Andy.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, moving to parking. Mr. Cillian. Bob, good evening. Welcome, good to see you.
Great to be before the great board. Again, the budget was terrific by Steve Spencer, Mike Bettino, Mayor Nicholson, and the Chief of Staff did a great job. I'm very blessed with a great office. My office staff is unbelievable, and my department is unbelievable. We've got a few new things happening. We've got the plate readers now up and in the vehicles, and they're doing the training process right now, which will alleviate a lot of the problems with the resident parking. We can now be enforcing it at night. Before, you couldn't go out at night because of restrictions and the dangerousness of somebody walking around people's cars. We got a lot of good things coming in. The mayor's administration, chief of staff, I come in taking over many, many years ago. They've replaced an assistant right now. I have the assistant. We just replaced the abandoned officer and meter maintenance. So this administration has done terrific in bringing the office up to the standards, because it's hard to wear 5 or 6 hats, and I'll tell you, this administration has done terrific, and this council has been terrific. The budget is terrific. We can live with it, and I can guarantee I can live with it because I'm on my way out. So I got no problem with the budget, and it is a great budget that they did.
Councilor Field.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Stilling, you did mention that, so I just wanted to say thank you for always responding and effectively responding to all our concerns that residents reach out to us directly as far as different issues surrounding parking. Can you touch on a little bit just on the overnight parking and how that's improved, or what we can do looking at the budget, you know, after you're gone, to help the new parking department chair head to kind of improve the commercial vehicles and such, the problems that we have now?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is going to be improved with what the chief of staff and the mayor have done. The plate readers now, when you go down the street, it's going to identify all non-vehicles. The information is going to come up. It's going to be able to get them to much more areas with the staffing we have. They're going to be able to actually patrol a lot more with these new things. Even during the day, it's going to enhance the enforcement because when they go down the street, it's going to do timings. It's going to be able to do a lot of things. It's going to also pull out the unregistered vehicles, which will definitely enhance we're all paying insurance because all these unregistered vehicles are costing us more insurance because it goes by the areas that the cars are in. The overnight people are, right now, we're working a major, which most of you know, downtown. We've been towing the cars and we've been ticketing them. We are still towing, but we've had a lot of response from the downtown that it actually is starting to look nice and it's actually coming along. I think you will find the problem with commercial vehicles is going to go away in all 7 wards because we're going to be out there with the plate readers and everything. It's not going to be as hard when you're driving down the street. A lot of vehicles have non-passenger plates, but you can't see when you're driving up and down the streets, plus you're trying to watch the traffic. This is going to ping, so you're going to know there's a commercial vehicle, a taxi, a bus, or something, so they're going to be able to tag it much more. I believe with the staff we have right now, the only thing which we are working, I've spoken with the Chief of Staff and Drew, we are looking to put a supervisor on the 3rd shift, which will enhance for the police calls and different things that we have. And we are towing nights, which anybody wants to come out at 4 o'clock in the morning, come on out. But again, this person here could then expedite with the towing and stuff, which would be a good thing. So I believe what this administration is doing is going to get all the results that the councils are looking for.
Excellent. And just
follow up?
Yeah, one final question. I know with the readers, I know with the police department, I've spoken with chief in the past, as part of like a de-escalation where they can issue a citation. It doesn't have to be on at that time. They can go back to the station, issue a citation for a noise complaint at a later, and it's mailed to them. Is that something that the enforcement officers that are doing the ticketing, do they have to issue the ticket right then, or can they come back to the office and do the administrative work at a later time so there's no, you drive down the street and then you get 10 citations that you have to issue, and that's...
It's actually easier than you have to mail each one. It's actually easier to write the citation at the time.
Yep.
And we try not to do it afterwards because then I think people feel it's entrapment. What do you mean? So we try to issue the citations right away when we can. We are picking up now, Attorney Lamanna and myself are working on a thing downtown with the dumpsters. My people are going to be able to write a citation. So these dumpsters are out illegally in the mornings and at the wrong time. My people will be writing those also. So
that's only for on.
That will probably be something that we will mail out because you can't, if I put a ticket on the dumpster, there's going to be 50 of them on the dumpster. So we are going to be mailing those out. But the regular, and again, if they were going to your car and you come out and you started giving them a hard time, we instruct them to drive off and we will mail that ticket. But 99.9% of our tickets are issued right at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Field. Councilor Ellingson.
Bob, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you for your service to the city. You answer our calls even midnight, late nights, and you drove to my ward many times with me, so thank you. Quick question, how many ticketing staff, parking ticket staff you have?
There's 9 enforcement officers.
9. How many works in the evening?
3. On 3rd shift, 3 on each shift, so you have 3 on each shift.
Okay. In a city of 102,000, okay. My question is, during street sweeping, right? There was a time that you don't have a staff available. That would be a perfect time for a city to earn a lot of money. There's just a lot of people just don't want to move their cars. Is there a way for us to do like contractual or talk to any programs where that's the best opportunity for us to
A lot of the problem we had this year, we had a gentleman who had some heart problems. He was out. We had a couple of other employees who were out sick.
I understand that, but is there a way for us?
I believe with the normal staffing and without those health issues that we had this year, and we were filling some staff, I don't believe we'll have that problem in the future.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Spoken from a councilor who is unopposed currently. Thank you. Councilor Starbird.
Good catch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, Bob, you have been so responsive, as Councilor Alex said, night and day, 7 days a week. I hope that we can count on the same type of response from whoever comes in to try to fill your shoes, but thank you for all your help.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure serving the city and this board. I'll tell you, through the years, it's been a great council the city's always had. This has been a terrific council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, we'll really miss Bob because I think, speak for the council, he is really one of our go-to department heads, and he's serious when he says he wore 5 or 6 hats for the city. He absolutely did that, and he's been around for several administrations, and it's really been a pleasure to work alongside him. So thank you again, Bob. We wish you the best in retirement. Moving on to our Council of Aging, Tanya Friedman. Thank you, Tanya. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, soon to be good evening, everyone, councilors and department heads. I would want to thank you. I would be remiss not to say that I wouldn't be here without your support. I want to thank the mayor's office as well. You've been very accessible to me and our department. I represent the senior center. We are paired with ISD and public health department. Currently, our team is comprised of 3 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee. We are currently working with Drew Russo to hopefully add a much-needed addition to our team, a full-time driver. As some of you may know, I inherited the budget as the interim director in March, and we just really wanted to maintain the services. For those of you that have come out to the senior center, either on special events or just on a regular day, our numbers have increased. We first started with an average number of 30, and now we're upwards to 55 to 60 per day. So if you do the math, you'll understand how many seniors we're servicing throughout the week. Currently, we also have a vacancy. I believe there's a candidate to hire for the director position. I serve as the interim very proudly. And also, we are in some conversations about having a much-needed nurse as well. My team is, I couldn't ask for a better team. However, being a new department, we're still in the works. We've tried to forecast our needs based on the present budget in hand and try to forecast ahead what our needs will be, and definitely the need of a full-time driver, nursing, and perhaps an added personnel. The Department of Public Health, with the assistance of the Mayor's Department, has been very, very generous and gracious to us in providing us tracers that originally came from the Department of Public Health, but we know that we're on borrowed time with that. So we're doing a lot with a team of 4, and we just looked for additional support with that. I used to live in Lynn, and coming back to Lynn, I have been treated so warmly and so well, and the department heads that I've met with, Steve Spencer, Solicitor's Department, you're behind me, but thank you, everyone. They've set time aside to guide me and to give me just really sound advice, and I really appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. Questions from the council? Council Field?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tanya, kudos to you from March on to today for fulfilling the role as the interim director. You know, myself and many of our colleagues and people throughout the city, the community policing, everybody loves visiting there. And I think that saying goes, you know, a reflection of the city is based on how they treat their seniors. I think we're continuing to move forward. I know I just want to share a personal story. I was there a few weeks ago, and there was one resident, I don't want to name her, but she was celebrating a birthday. And as she was talking, she was elated that, you know, everybody, she was given a cupcake with a candle, and everybody gave her well wishes, and her words kind of struck, where she said, you know, you guys are my family. And that, you know, that really pulls at your heartstrings when you're listening. The same day I was there, I witnessed 3 phone calls of other seniors that weren't able to get there that day because of that driver, that void missing. So I would certainly advocate for a full-time driver, you know, to the nth degree, to help whatever we need to do to get these residents to share in that camaraderie, to that family-like atmosphere that you and your staff provide. So thank you there, and we hope to have a full-time driver to supply, to serve the population that deserves it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions?
Great job.
Tanya? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Do you have, Councilor Net?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tanya, are you collaborating with other agency at adult daycare at all?
Currently, we haven't. We've collaborated with other community resources in the area. For the day programs, not so much. I think early on, there was a meet and greet, and I think the vision was to partner in some way. I know that we just had this fantastic walk on the Commons. That was not a one-time event. So in the future, I know that there was discussions about having the day programs participate in that as well.
Okay. In the future, you will?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions, Tanya? Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Okay, moving right along to our Veterans Department, coming on off of the heels of a jam-packed Memorial Day weekend of events. Director Sweeney, welcome, Mike. Thank you for all you did, in particular this past weekend. I hear a lot of great chatter around the city about what we accomplished, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Our budget really hasn't changed much in terms of the services we provide. We're a heavily services-laden budget. About 75% of our budget, 75% is on Chapter 115, which is state-mandated aid that we, as a community, must provide to veterans and their families in need. The rest of the balance is predominantly payroll. The one thing we're very proud of this year, as in past years, I think for all of us, I think we had a hearing, I think all of us were here for the hearing last week. Federally, they've increased eligibility for VA service-connected disabilities across the board. It's the biggest increase since about 30 years ago. I know we talked about Agent Orange last week, Councilor LaPierre. Since that day, this is the biggest one. They have added, and I use this as an opportunity, maybe as a little bit of outreach. If you're a Vietnam veteran with hypertension who stepped foot in Vietnam, you are probably service-connected, and we want to see you. So with that, that's really where the big rush we see coming in the next coming years. They've expanded eligibility under Agent Orange. They've expanded eligibility, this is at the federal level, for, we've all heard about Camp Lejeune and the water. But there's an awful lot of stuff for veterans like myself who served in Afghanistan. A lot of the breathing issues and a lot of the environmental hazards that were for people who served in the Middle East over the last 20 years, which a little scary to think it's been 20 years, but it's over the last 20 years, those disabilities are now considered presumptive. What that's going to mean in practice is our office, veterans advocates across the board, are going to have to really step up, and really that just is frankly hours of staff, because we're going to have, what we do is in our office we do VA claims, hook people up with VA health care. it's God's work, it's great work, but I just think that we're excited about that opportunity because you're going to see an awful lot of men and women who have served, who may have tried to apply in the past that are now going to be eligible. So we're really looking forward to that opportunity. A lot of our, as we talked about yesterday, our Memorial Day events over that we've really been lucky to partner with the Lynn Veterans Council and other groups within the city to, and really, I think post-COVID, our Veterans Council has really seen a resurgence, which is really impressive, really great. I think anyone who's seen, I think the number we were looking at in the last couple of days is almost 20,000 graves were flagged this year, but that's not enough. We want to keep moving forward with that. We invite other groups to come down and participate. And that really does, it really has that kind of work that people do. Last Thursday night when we flagged the graves, the Veterans Council went out and flagged graves in Pine Grove Cemetery. The Boy Scouts did St. Joseph's all across the board. That work, actually, believe it or not, kind of is, I look at it a little bit too, almost like as informal outreach, because you're running into people. Those are the people who may not come to your office that you run into, so they're critical. They really are. And more specific on outreach, what we want to do in the coming year is get out of the office more, get into the community, we talked about whether it's a senior center or working with the Veterans Council to host events at different areas across the city to work on healthcare outreach events, which leads me to the big expenditure that I want to say thank you to the city of Lynn, completely, the mayor, EDIC, the council, to purchase 225 Boston Street, where the Lynn VA clinic is, I think is a real sea change in how we're going to get treated, I hope. All I know is that we're better off, as I said to the EDIC, I said to Jim Cowdell, we're better off today having that building be in the hands of the city of Lynn. We haven't always been treated fairly by the VA in that regard in terms of communication. For the second time in my tenure, which they've tried to close the VA clinic and move it. I think what they see as a small move isn't the same, isn't small for us. And one person who was very active with the Veterans Council on this was Brigadier General Andrea Gale Bennett. When we sat down across from the VA and pointed out to them that they did no not sufficient socioeconomic data analysis to determine they didn't count what, and as I would say, in 2023, if you're not taking into account disability, race, sex, age, income, when you're talking about moving healthcare resources, you're doing that on purpose. And I think that's what the VA was doing. They reasoned backwards. They wanted to move this clinic 15, 18 years ago. We were able to stop them. Hopefully we're in that regard. We're really, as was reported last week here in the council, they're on the verge of doing another short-term, another 3-year lease, and that gets us to continue on. And Mass Senior Action was, anyone who drove by the clinic every Friday this summer saw Mass Senior Action was out. There was a real community event. But that's really, I think if I could do a little shameless plug, every month now we're going to be doing a veterans food pantry, it's going to be called Hero Meals, which is something we do every Thanksgiving. We give out to everyone. And this isn't going to be needs-based. It's a thank you. If anyone has any veterans who want to take part, please let us know. We're going to keep doing that. And one of the things I like to use is sort of a military term, so I hate using jargon, but I think we can be a bit of a force multiplier in the community. And that's where when we work with the Veterans Council, and then you see where EDIC, it's coming up, the Freedom Fish is coming up, so if you want to go do that. The money they donated to the Veterans Council was used by the Veterans Council to donate to the Bradley Campus Memorial that's going to be built, that's being built in Ward 3 over at Clark Playground. The lead organization on that's going to be the Marine Corps League, and Bradley Campus is a young man from Lynn who was killed in Beirut 40 years ago this year. And so that's the big event coming up, but I think those things don't happen by accident, and one of the reasons we can do that is because of the support of the council and the mayor, so I want to say thank you for that, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions? Questions for Mike? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Okay, we did get correspondence from Teresa Hurley. She's unfortunately away fortunately for her, she's on vacation, but could not be with us, but did send the council communications, so we have accepted those communications. So we're going to skip the Lynn Public Library. this evening and move right over to Planning Department with Aaron Clausen. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you, Councilor. Aaron Clausen, the Lynn Principal Planner, here on behalf of the Planning Department. There's, as you probably all know, 3 of us in the department, myself, the Assistant Principal Planner, Lauren Drago, and Lucretia Thompson, who is our Arts and Cultural Planner. Our mission is to assist the city and the community in realizing a vision for the city of Lynn, particularly around land use, transportation, economic development, housing, environmental planning, environmental preservation, open space planning, and arts and culture. Over the last 18 months or so, we've had the great pleasure in leading the effort to create the city's first ever comprehensive plan called Vision Lynn. And in that document, working with the community, stakeholders, policymakers such as yourself, have been able to establish a vision for the council's consideration, which is that Lynn will be a city where people feel safe and comfortable to live, work, learn, and play. Lynn will be a city where all community members have the housing, transportation access, social connections, and educational and economic opportunities to live a fulfilling life. And lastly, Lynn will be a city to be proud of, with strong, diverse, connected communities that take of our shared spaces, natural resources, and each other. We are going to be presenting to you, the council, in the next couple of weeks. We hope to have your support in endorsing the comprehensive plan later on in June, and we'll be seeking approval by the planning department, or excuse me, the planning board of the plan by the end of this June. It's been a very invigorating and informative process whereby we've had over more than 1,000 voices help shape that plan and shape how the city will look to grow in the next 20 to 25 years. This is one of our key highlights for the last year, and appreciate your support and assistance in developing that plan. That plan also helps sort of map out and create the strategy for the coming year. We'll talk a little bit about some of the activities that will be coming out of that in just a second, but to kind of key in on some of the other highlights that we've seen and been able to sort of complete and move forward in the last year, one of them being Harbor Park. We've been able to execute a 5-party MOU to develop an existing landfill into a signature waterfront harbor park. The first phase, which is underway right now, which would deliver in 2025 a approximately 25-acre park for the community to enjoy. Going forward, we're going to be looking to continue that effort, particularly with the shoreline restoration piece of that. So there's more work to do, but with your support again, we were able to bring over $11 million in public and private investment to create that park. Some other highlights to talk a little bit about is the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program that we've been working through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the last 3 to 4 years, but more recently, a green infrastructure investment at Berry Park to create essentially a pervious parking area and underground storage to help mitigate flooding in the Strawberry Brook watershed, one of the key vulnerable areas that the city has, particularly with inland flooding. But going forward, we're going to be looking at enhancing that work to make our city's shoreline more resilient to climate change, particularly sea level rise. And we're currently working with a consortium of communities, including Saugus and Revere, to understand the Saugus River watershed itself and identify regional interventions that we can take that benefit and make all of our community shorelines more resilient. That will also benefit us on the harbor side with respect to the harbor park itself. You also are aware that we worked closely with you all and other departments, including the law department, in advancing a comprehensive zoning change that included both housing initiatives and economic development adjustments to drive both more affordable housing through the inclusionary zoning ordinance, but also opening up and easing the permitting process for commercial and industrial properties in areas that historically have had that use, so that we can support and grow a more diverse land use base, more diverse tax base, and grow job opportunities in the city. And we'll look to continue that work as we implement the comprehensive plan. And then some other activities around the arts and cultural and economic development. Been leading investment through the Creative Cities program which is $500,000 support from the state, primarily through mass development, to support our arts and cultural ecosystem and really kind of build on that strength that we have as a community and that resource that I think that we can sort of hold up as a competitive advantage in the region. And then lastly, the Union Street Transformative Development Initiative. Again, another sort of a leading process or strategy that we are trying to move through equitable economic development focused on Union Street, but how can we make sure that as we grow as a community, as we grow economic opportunity, we're doing it equitably across the community and making sure that the businesses that exist now are getting the support that they need. But going forward, working with you all and adopting the Vision Lynn, we see some pretty big projects in the next year or so. One of them being zoning reform. That's going to be one of the key priorities coming out of the comp plan. We want to sort of refresh, make our zoning code align with the land use and urban form strategy that's laid out in that plan, make it more accessible to the broader community, and attract more investment, and support the initiatives that will help us achieve that vision statement that I just read off. Just a couple other projects we'll be working on with a number of different other departments is the Open Space and Rec Master Plan update. It's been about 7 years since we've had that in place. That'll be important to sort of feed in on some of the open space priorities identified in the comp plan. But it's also pretty important because it is an eligibility requirement for the city in seeking funds through the PARK program at the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. The city has been very successful for the last decade, I would say, in going out and getting those funds. But this will help make sure that we're going to be able to do so in the future. And then lastly, the South Harbor Waterfront Plan, essentially taking what we've done in the last 3 to 5 years on the harbor side, but how can we tie that into the Gearworks side itself so that we have a comprehensive and connected neighborhood across the Linway and benefiting from the resource of the Riverworks T station and turning that into a full access transit option for the community and driving economic development in one of the largest opportunities we have in terms of development in the city. So with that, happy to take any questions you might have.
Yes, Aaron, I just want to thank you and the mayor's office for helping me with all the work on South and Summer Street. We're getting that intersection done over. That's a high crash area since I've been a counselor. I think I had over 20 accidents in that, and happily there's no deaths that occurred at that intersection. But could you just update us on the progress of that project?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the prompt, Counselor. So we, working in close partnership with the mayor's office, we have been able to allocate some of the cannabis recreational mitigation funds towards transportation enhancements in the city. One avenue or one angle where we're looking at is updating up to 10 traffic signals in the city to make them operate more efficiently for all roadway users, but also make those intersections safer, particularly for pedestrians, bicyclists, and people taking transit. The Summer and South intersection is one of the most challenging intersections that we have as a community. That's going to require more than just a replacement of traffic signal equipment. So there's funding that has been allocated to come up with a complete redesign of that intersection. And we're in the conceptual phase of that, getting survey work right now to sort of get the lay of the land. The next step will be coming up with a conceptual plan that we can share with the community, get some feedback, and hopefully in the next, say, 3 to 6 months, have a design that we can move on. The next step after that will be finding funding. It'll be approximately $1 million project to redo that intersection.
Well, it's much needed, and I just want to thank you for your help on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions for Aaron? Planning Department? Seeing none. Thank you, Aaron, for the update. Appreciate it, your time.
Thank you.
Excellent. Moving right along, we'll go to the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic Hall Museum, with Wendy Joseph, our curator. Good evening, Wendy. Oh, you're not Wendy. Here you are. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
My name is Patty Pendexter.
Thank you, Patty.
Short. I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees of the GAR.
Excellent.
and I'm here to, to present the budget. The primary focus of the past year for the trustees was the construction of the elevator. The first part of that was working with the architects to develop the plan and obtain construction costs. So we're at the point where we're ready to go forward. The architects are presenting us with a revised timeline within the next couple weeks. The second part of that the trustees had to attack was finding funding for the project. And thanks to the City Council and to the Mayor's office, through your support, we were able to, through ARPA funds and community development block grants, we were able to obtain $1.6 million of $1.8 million needed for construction of the elevator. What is important about the elevator is it makes the building handicapped accessible. So therefore, it will be accessible to more people, create more traffic, and open up more financial resources, more grants that we can apply for. While that was all going on, Wendy Joseph, our curator, building coordinator, and one and only employee, continued to do tours for the general public and for the school department, for school employees, school students, sorry. She continued to create interesting, informative, and creative displays. And most interestingly, she, in conjunction with the Lynn Public Schools, she initiated an Ancestry.com program, whereas Lynn High School students will be researching the genealogy of the Civil War veterans in the Grand Ballroom so that we figure out what their lineage is and hopefully make a connection with them. The Civil War Roundtable continued to hold their monthly meetings in the building. The trustees have developed a very good working relationship with the Friends of the GAR and are assisting them in their fundraising activities. And we now have, the last fiscal year, we had a new board of trustees. And one of our priorities was taking a hard look at the budget, which was done primarily by Bradley Gosling, one of the trustees. And as you can see before you in the budget, it is slightly less than the fiscal 2023 year. And primarily, if you look at it real closely, the primary cost is employee salaries. And there's really nothing you can do about salaries. The others costs are maintenance, repair, utilities for the building. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Patty. Any questions for Patty? Seeing none, thank you for your good work and your updating.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Recognize our curator, Wendy Joseph, in the audience as well. Thank you. Moving right along, City Clerk, License Commission, Precinct Offices. That is Miss Rowe, Clerk Rowe. Good evening.
First thing I have to scratch is good afternoon, because it's now good evening.
It is good evening.
The city clerk's office is the keeper of the records for the city of Lynn. From the 2020 federal census, the population in Lynn was increased by almost 11,000 people, making us the largest city in Essex County and the 8th largest city in the Commonwealth. I'd like to note that the city clerk's office brings in revenue for the city through our license and permit fees. These fees are all comparable with other cities of our size in our surrounding cities and towns. I am proud to say we have kept the fees on our vital statistic records at one of the lowest in the Commonwealth. This helps our citizens tremendously who have to come in and get their birth, marriage, and death records of their loved ones. We do charge more for out-of-city mail and phone requests, but we keep our office fees at the lower cost to help our citizens. The election office continues to see a substantial uptick in work due to the population increase and the demands of the Votes Act of 2023. Early voting and mailing voting are here to stay. I'm very fortunate to have such a dedicated staff. Not only have they taken on a lot of additional work, but they each give 100% to the City of Lynn. In closing, I want to say that our budget is level funded, and as in the past, we'll make it work.
Excellent. Thank you, Janet. Any questions for our clerk?
No.
Her department.
There are no questions, Brian.
She's quite capable and able, and she'll be with us at least another hour, I think, so. Seeing none, right?
None.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Thanks for all the work you do and your staff. Moving on, we have Chief of Staff John Tebow from the Mayor's Office joining us. Thank you, John. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, and on behalf of Mayor Nicholson, it's a pleasure to be here tonight to present the FY24 budget for our office. In addition to myself and the mayor, our office has an administrative director, a constituent services coordinator, a community affairs and outreach coordinator, a communications and strategic initiatives manager, and a policy director. The city's diversity, equity, and inclusion officer and senior advisor to the mayor is also located here in our office. This past year, we were excited to bring on a language access coordinator who oversees all aspects of interpretation for the entire building. This includes overseeing and coordinating our simultaneous interpretation equipment, which were purchased this past year and have already been used numerous times to translate public events for residents in real time. The mayor's office strives to exhibit respect for all people within the city and places a high priority on constituent service, responsiveness, transparency, accountability, and equity. We constantly look at ways to increase civic pride and engagement and work tirelessly to improve the overall quality of life of all in Lynn, which we do so in collaboration with the City Council and all the department heads. We work with partners at the state and federal levels to relay the city's priorities and collaborate on mutual goals. We've been working closely with the CFO on our office's operating budget, and while it is not without its challenges, we do still carry out key priorities, including increasing civic engagement and further opening the doors of City Hall through community events and city staff training around diversity, equity, and inclusion. This year, our office has worked with City Hall departments to host Linside Out, a Halloween event featuring office decorated tables and pumpkin decorating, a holiday arts and crafts event, an Earth Day plant pot decorating, another amazing student government day, and we are actively planning for the fireworks as well as another Linside Out festival. We continue to focus on reinvigorating city boards and committees with diverse and qualified appointments, and we remain committed to engaging residents and fully embracing our community's many identities at each and every flag raising we host. We look forward to getting several ARPA projects underway here on the city side, including significant upgrades to parks across the city, and we are truly grateful for all the council and resident collaboration during each phase of the ARPA funding rounds. Further, we appreciate the collaboration with you all to get inclusionary zoning passed and look forward to continuing the work of increasing affordable housing through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Our office remains committed to launching a culturally competent, unarmed response team, and we continue to engage with the community and stakeholders as this vision takes shape. We look forward to building on these successes in the coming fiscal year. Thank you again for having me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, John. Any questions for Mr. Tebow? Councilor Ellingson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, picture this. I got a call from my constituent. I went to his house, and with my limited Spanish, I thought I'll be okay. But it went nowhere. So I called City Hall for translation. It was just very chaotic with my signal of my phone, the traffic passing, because we're outside. My question is, I appreciate that we have this translation services happening. Can you expand that service, especially to ward councilors, that we can book a translator, bring it to our ward, and set a meeting with a constituent and have that conversation there? I'm not sure if it's happening or not. What I learned is they will be based here and not going somewhere. Can you just have that conversation with them in the future?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's commendable that you went through those efforts to try and connect with your residents. That's certainly something that we would like to improve on and maybe think about. Maybe we can collaborate. Like I said, our language access coordinator, Berta Tavares, is fast taking on initiatives like this on how to better, include residents and try and solve their issues. So it's something that.
Yeah, because I know you can book them for an appointment or meeting.
Yeah.
Why can't we not book them outside and look at a curve or a traffic light or a sidewalk problem or tree problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we can absolutely think through. I think just time constraints might hold that up, but I don't see why we can't try and come together for a collaborative
I just
approach
want that to
towards.
be in our medicine cabinet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, something
Thank
we
you.
can think on.
Other questions, comments for John regarding the mayor's office budget? Seeing none. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Forward to seeing you again. The next line is the city council office. I did speak with Council President Walsh. He's delighted with the current budget for FY 2024, and there's no need for questions, I wouldn't think, from our august body. But seeing that we're concluding our budget informational session with department heads, we want to thank everyone. The next process in this step is on Tuesday, June 13th, the council will be taking up this proposed budget for FY 2024. There will be a public hearing that evening where people can come and voice their opinions. We'll also hear from the mayor, and we'll be deliberating on the budget itself on Tuesday, June 13th at 5:30, at the regular council meeting, 5:30 p.m. Clerk Rowe, would you like to call? We need motions to adjourn, I would think, is appropriate at this point. Motion to adjourn made by Council Field, seconded by Council Hogan. All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? None heard. Thank you, we're good. It was a long one, huh? Over 3 hours.